slow the chat before I forget all the stuff. Hey, let's put the stream up. We're hearing court will start in about 13 minutes. That's what we're hearing. So let's keep it up. Just making sure all my stuff is ready to go. So what we do know is that as of this morning, or not too long ago, Diamante Kendricks, aka Yak Gotti, rejected his latest plea. So all the offers offered to him have been rejected at this point. Yes, makeup artist. Listen, I screenshot you. Girl. I said, no, I missed a super chat. And that was not my intention. You know, that was not my intention at all. Let me find it. You were trying to ask about the person who was sitting next to Steele, right? That was you. That was your super chat. First of all, thank you for the super chat. That was not my intention to miss your super chat. That was an attorney. That was an attorney who is in some capacity working with Brian Steele. I don't know the capacity, but that is an attorney. I'm sorry that I missed it. I'm telling you, I was like, no, I was trying to figure out if I could just go back live just to answer your question. But what I'm saying is, what we know, right, is that Diamante Kendrick was the first that we know of. Was the first to say that he rejected the latest pleas, and then Shannon Stillwell was next. So as of now, both of them are saying they are ready to go to trial, take it to trial. Of course, this is the thing that you should know. You should always know. A deal is closed right now. They're saying no, but the state can, if they so choose, to come back with a better deal, another deal, something more favorable, something not. They can choose to have another one. As of now, they're saying we're done, but they can come back if they so choose. As of now, though, the word is that they are ready to keep going. And so that leaves Jeffrey Williams, aka Young Thug. That is who that leaves. And just because I know I was getting some comments on my TikTok about this, just as a reminder, right? Diamante Kendricks, aka Yak Gotti, his charges include the charge for Donovan Thomas's murder. That is one of his charges. I can pull it up so that you can see. Right. Oh, I can take your comment down. Let me put up. Right. So you can see that. So Diamante Kendrick, he has 1, 2, 57 through 63. So what we all know, number one is obviously the conspiracy to violate the RICO Act. Number two is for the murder of Donovan Thomas. And then what did we say? 57? It starts at 57 through 63. So from here, right? So he has some gang charges. Those are controlled substances, possession of a firearm, machine gun, possession of a firearm by convicted felon, possession. So he really has the death of Donovan Thomas and then some possession and gang charges. That is what Diamante Kendrick, those are his charges. Obviously, like we've said, he has rejected the latest plea. So he wants to take it to trial. And then Shannon Stillwell, let me check the link. Okay, we're still good. Shannon Stillwell His charges, he has the death of Donovan Thomas. He also has Shymel Drinks, that second murder that's on this. He has both of those for sure. And then how come I don't know my alphabet right now. Okay, so he has 1, 2, 49 through 54 without 53 and then 64. So number 2 for sure is Donovan Thomas. I think number 49 is Shymel Drinks. And then let's go to it though. So 49 is Shymel Drinks. He has criminal street gang, possession. I think we said not to 54, and then he has more possession. So he has the 2 murders on Shannon Stillwell, and like I said, it's being reported that he has, as of now, has rejected those plea deals and is saying, "Let's go to court." So that leaves Jeffrey Williams. That leaves Jeffrey Williams. Let me put up X as well, just because that can give us. Let me make sure I have the right one up. And I do. All right. So we are waiting. We are about 8 minutes away from what they're saying, and of course, everything's loose. It's never like right at the time. Well, low-key Whitaker, sometimes she'd be on it. But just know that we are getting closer to the time that we are expecting something to take place. And that something seems to be leading to potentially something for Jeff. But we'll see. We'll see. We'll when it happens, that's when we know it happened. Yes, we are in Gen Pop. We are with the folks. Thanks for joining, for being in here while we wait, y'all. While we wait. Yes. And so while we wait, we can go back to Jeffrey Williams' charges to remind you what he is facing. Let me pull him up. So Jeff has number 1, which is violating the RICO Act, right? And then he has 56, 57, 58, 60. So 56 through 62. What did I say? 56? Look at my brain that quick. 56. Okay. So he has participation in criminal street gang. He has some violation of the Georgia Controlled Substances. So he had some drugs on him for 58, 59, 60. Possession of a firearm during commission of a felony. Possession of a machine gun. 63. Possession of a fire. It couldn't have. Did we stop at my brain? You guys, my brain. 62. I was going to say he's not a felon, so 63 can't be for him. So it's basically he has count 1 violating the RICO Act, and then he has some drugs and firearm possession charges. And this, I believe, stems from the raid on his house. But other people also have these charges because they were also at the house. So that's what he is charged with. You know. And again, he's not a felon, none of that. So my understanding is he could have the first offenders, I think. So yeah, so there was more than one raid on Jeffrey Williams' house. The first one was illegal. The second one was not, from my understanding, and I'm pretty confident in that understanding. The first one was not. But the second one, where the stuff that's in here is included, it was legally obtained by the law enforcement. Yes. And is there one like being leader of a gang? Yeah, let me I think it's that second one. Hold on, because he has 50. I think it's 57. Let me scroll down really quick and I can tell you more specifically. Give me 1 second. There's so many pages, but it's because the overt acts take up so many. 60. What did I say? 57. There's 60. And then. So yeah, it's 56 actually. And so Let me I can reshare this with you. Let me put it back on the screen, because a lot of the co-defendants have the gang charge, right? And so 57, as you'll see, is participation in the criminal street gang activity, and it's all these people. But 56 says participation just for Jeffrey Williams, and it says for the accused, state of Georgia, between the 12th day of May 2018 through 8th day of May 2022, while occupying a position of organizer, supervisor, or other position of management or leadership of the criminal street gang YSL, Jeffrey Williams essentially did engage directly or indirectly or conspire to engage in the following acts. So this, Whitney, this is what you're asking about. It's count 56. That charge, you see, it's only for Jeffrey Williams. That charge is specifically for being the leader of the gang. So that is the charge that they gave just to him. But if you scroll down, you see 57, it has other, just like participation in criminal street gang, versus 56 is the leader of the street gang. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. No, Shannon, the latest reported is that Shannon rejected his plea deal, and that he said he's ready to go to trial. Correct. Okay, good. That makes sense. Good. Oh, Big Lou is reporting. This is from Big Lou, not from me. He's saying, and I'm not saying you lying, but he's reporting that Nuts' parents are at the courthouse. Let me, what did I just do? Let me put the feedback up just to make sure we don't miss nothing. Thank you, Extreme Body Cam. That sounds like you got some good videos on your page. But I appreciate this. I was working on another video that I wanted to post, but of course I've been stuck in YSL limbo to make sure that if anything happens, that we don't miss it, that we get to see what's going on. Yeah, so we may have action. Oh, that's per Kathy Rusan. Big Lou is saying per Kathy, who obviously is law and crime and, very well respected and tapped in. She is reporting. Let's go to her page really quick. Oh, yep. Here it is. Thank you for the flag. Let me put it up really quick. Appreciate you. Appreciate the heads up, Big Lou. It says Donovan Thomas parents have arrived at the courthouse. So there we go. They have arrived. So all of the indications is given that we may be up for another plea. That's what it's giving. And if the other two have rejected, all indications would lead to Jeffrey Williams. Hey girl, you just get in here. We waiting for go time. We are, what they are saying, theoretically minutes away from this beginning and us hearing officially what the plea will be, as we assume to be for Jeffrey Williams. Yeah, as of now, Jeffrey Williams is the remaining person as of now. It can always change for Shannon and Yak, okay? Just so we're clear. It can always change. As of now, they have rejected it. The state can come back if they so choose. But as of now, Shannon, Yak, rejected. That leaves the man on the table. It only nail biting, right? It does feel really nail biting. I went back and looked at my very first video that I made for this case, literally day one of this trial. And I'm like, girl, I can't believe you have been on this for this long. I feel very invested into this story and just what happens, what these co-defendants choose to do, what they don't choose to do, if we proceed, what the verdict is going to be, what the evidence is. Like, I feel very invested to find out what happens for sure. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I would play that day one video, but it's 3:31 now, so I'm gonna play it after because we gotta see what happens. I can't afford to miss anything. I cannot afford to miss anything. Yeah, it is. The time was 3:30 that was given. It's obviously 3:32, but we're waiting. Being there, I can tell you, nothing is, you have the general times, but all of this stuff is like a lot. So everybody's trying to, I'm sure we'll get there in a minute. I'm sure we will get there. Dago Life. If you're just tuning in, Shannon Stillwell, Yak Gotti rejected their pleas. As of now, we're all speculating, and it seems like we have good reason to speculate that Jeffrey Williams is seeming to be up to accept a plea. And Donovan Thomas's family is reportedly there. His parents are reportedly at the courthouse. Yeah. Okay. Cushy is saying, just letting you know those early charges got through out from when his house got raided. So the one I'm looking at is from the second indictment. And that machine gun and I think the drug possession charges are still standing because there were 2 raids. Oh, Loki Cam is back. Oh, that's a good idea. I can pin a comment. Let me pin a comment so people who are just joining know. Thugger Daily, thank you. Thank you, Delisa is saying 3:45. So now we have 15 minutes or a little less than that. Let me make a comment so we pin it. Okay, I see his post. Thank you. Thank you for the heads up. Let me make a post really quick, a comment so we can have it posted. Oop, not my audio. I gotta do a poll. Let me ask y'all a poll question. Oh wait, I have to do okay. Court to resume at 3:45. Thug possibly accepting plea. Okay. Now I feel like I'm a puke. I know it's crazy how invested we all are, right? It's kind of crazy. Hey, Renee. Okay, Cushy is saying that's old news. Okay. Yeah, if you didn't watch my video I did of a lot of the I think I did it on a live too. I played it, all of the mistrial motions. And one of my favorite moments from this case is when Brian Steele said, "This is like communist Russia. Mr. Williams is having the most unfair trial." It was just, I mean, it was a time. Hey, hello. We are waiting to see if Thug is accepting a plea. I was supposed to be recording my podcast, The Debrief, today, but I was like, I can't afford to miss anything. So if you are a debrief watcher, that'll probably be late to tomorrow because we have to tap in. Mel, my pits are sweaty. If you are not, I don't want to, I guess we have time now. Let me find my what's the name video since we have a little bit of time. First of all, I looked just lively, fresh, optimistic. Let me find it. Hold on. I think by day 4 of my recaps for this trial, I think I had already said this case is crazy by day 4. Let me find it. Give me a second while we wait. Got about 10. Almost there. Okay. I don't know if it's going to be loud enough. Wait, let me play this really quick. Enjoy. I don't think I can make it big. Okay, here we go. I'm not a lawyer, but this is the part 2 recap for day 1 of the YSL RICO trial.
Look how happy.
So part 1 left off with the judge sending everyone to lunch and
is this part 2?
To send her presentation. Oh, this is, and matter of fact, that wasn't even my part 1. This is part 1
I'm not a lawyer, but it is.
Hold on. Part 2 picks up because that's when the state messed up on day 1. Look how fresh I look, you guys. Look at me. I'm tired now. I'm exhausted. My hair's not done. My makeup was done. I had earrings on. Look how fresh I look. Look at this. Look what 154 days of YSL trial will do to you. This
is day 1 of the YSL RICO trial. And yes, it is already as chaotic as we imagined.
It was day 1.
If you need a recap on how we got here, check out my YSL RICO trial highlight to get you caught up. Okay, so this is part 1 of my recap for the day. This is Adrienne Love, and she is the Fulton County Chief Deputy District Attorney, and she is representing the state in this case. She started her opening statement with a quote from The Jungle Book, which in part read, "The strength of the pack is the wolf, and the strength of the wolf is the pack." And then she went into a little bit of history on YSL.
For 10 years and counting, the group calling itself Young Slime Life.
Look at this.
Dominated the Cleveland Avenue community of Fulton County. They created a crater in the middle of Fulton County's Cleveland Avenue community that sucked in the youth, the innocence, and even the lives of some of its youngest members. Now, the evidence is going to show that this group.
Oh my gosh. That's great. It's crazy to look at how long ago that was now. That is crazy. I think look, my recap for day 3. Let's see.
I'm not a lawyer, but it was day 3 in the YSL RICO trial. Y'all, I don't even know where to begin. Let me give you the recap. So first, the state was supposed to have 3 witnesses today. 3 witnesses.
And how many they had?
They got through 1.
Girl!
So the witness of the day was this.
You guys, this has been happening since day 1. That is so funny. To look back, I'm so happy I documented this the way that I did, because to look back at that is crazy. Let me pull this back up just because we got about 5 minutes. That is so funny to me. Oh my God. That's insane. This has been a met. Oh, let me take down your pits are sweaty. Let me take it down. Laura says, literally on the edge of my seat. Yes, girl. Yes. This is so funny. Listen, my little black and whites I laugh at myself sometimes. Like, girl, that was funny. Oh, man. By day 3, this was already a mess. Day 1. There's like 4 parts to my day 1 because it was a mess already. Chat, look, not this one. I was in the paperwork. Exhibit F forever, okay? My claim to fame forever is I'm Exhibit F. Okay, let me read what y'all talk about because that's funny. I'm so stressed right now. I think we all are. I hope Thug don't take a guilty plea. If he do, he's not going to be able to take any flights across America and make that overseas bread. It depends. It depends on what the plea is, right? I think we have to see what he accepts. If he's we have to see what it is. I'm so nervous. I need to go sit on the toilets. Angie, you was in here the other day because I remember that fly haircut and them glasses. A whole video of me saying child a bunch of times. The whole child, look, child, this thing on trial. we need Exhibit F on a shirt. We do. We absolutely do. Don't get started with the merch because my Patreon is telling me all the time that I need to make merch. And I'd like, when this trial ends, I can have time to do other things. At this point, it takes up my life. Okay, let me see. Somebody's asking if there's any Thugger daily updates. Let's see if he didn't said anything. Nothing yet. Nothing new from Thugger Daily. And let me just refresh. I follow a bunch of folks. It says a probation officer just walked into, this is Shadi. I met him the other day when I was at trial too. A probation officer just walked into the Fulton County courtroom, followed by Sheriff Pat Labatt. This seems so important. Sheriff Pat Labatt, if I am correct, is the Fulton County like sheriff. Like that is, he's the sheriff, the big sheriff for Fulton County. So if he is in there, that's interesting. That's interesting. Let me put it up too so you can see. So y'all know I'm not lying. It's gonna be quick because we gotta go back to the link. But it says, this is here. A probation officer just walked into the Fulton County courtroom with the eyes, YSL trial, and then it says followed by Sheriff Pat Labatt. This seems important. So again, Pat Labatt is the sheriff for Fulton County, the 28th sheriff for Fulton County. So that is important. Let me pull the feed back up. Listen, I wish we need to get with the caption makers of all of these programs because they need to understand that when I say chow, I'm saying chow and not chow like bye. I'm not saying that. I'm saying chow like that. They always do it wrong. That is right. Alicia is making a good point. Thug is in Cobb. That is accurate. He has been being held in the Cobb County jail, not the Fulton County. But I think Yak and Shannon are not. Who knows what it could mean? Yes. Oh, I should change, Matthew. Thank you. I should change my holding thing because I put a comment that said, oh no, I said court to resume at 3:45. It's up there. Okay. I was going to say seal is up, y'all. Seal is up. Let's make it big. Let's make it big. Let me delete my comment then since we got action. Let me remove my Q&A thing. We got action. Look, y'all be on it. The seal is up, girl. No plea for Shannon and Yak. The latest is that they rejected their pleas. The seal is up. I love this. I love that the seal is up and we all know what it means. What am I going to do what am I going to do with my life when this is over? Still nothing on Shannon and Yak. The latest is they have rejected. Let's I mean, who knows? I don't know. How are y'all feeling? Wait. Somewhere else said I almost jumped on my blood trying to type that long crime went live. Well, first of all, be careful. Be careful. You're gonna have to find another crazy trial to watch. I for somehow seem to come upon them. So I'm sure there will be more for us to watch. For sure. There will be some interesting ones to watch and learn from. Keely, is it Keely? Is saying Thug's sister Dora tweeted about 5 minutes ago. Let me check hers. Let me check hers. She tweeted praying hands about 5 minutes ago. Thank you for that heads up. Yep, and Shanika saying she tweeted praying hands. Thank you, Big J. Appreciate you. Oh, Jamonia says Sheriff Labatt is suing Fulton County Board of Commissioners. I think I do know that, actually. I've been waiting to see the seal. As much as we hate the seal, we also, at this point, love the seal because it means we're heading towards something. Yeah, I wanted to cover Sarah Boone. I really wanted to, but this trial has consumed and y'all see trials are 9 to 5. So I wasn't able to follow it the way that I wanted. I really wanted to. But I wasn't able to. I followed Melly's case. If you have been long, I'm not a lawyer, but you know that low key on TikTok, I was one of the only people following Melly, YNW Melly's first case. That was a wild one. I think that one's still going to take a while before it starts. It's supposed to start, I think January or Feb of next year. I definitely have my eyes on it. When that one starts, 100%, I will be following that one again. I can't, forget where I came from. That's one of the early cases that I covered. Not the first, but it is an early case that a lot of people found me through. So for sure, when that one comes back, we'll be covering it because the first trial was crazy. Yep. So Doug's family has entered the courtroom. I just saw that tweet. Laura Payne is saying and I am saying I just saw the tweet, but Doug's family has just entered the courtroom. Dominique says my stomach hurts. If there is a press conference, I know there wasn't the other day, but that only was because of the other chaos that was happening in Atlanta. But if there is a press conference, for sure we can hang out to watch that. I definitely would love to hear from his attorneys. Okay, there's a Kathy Rousson update. Listen, I love y'all right now because usually I'm checking everything, but when you're live, you can't check it. So y'all are great. She says, Kathy Rousson 2 minutes ago says, Thug's sister just entered. I think we have a plea. And then she said, our feed is live. Those were the last updates from Kathy Rousson. Man, listen, the chat. Y'all are on it. We need a better help ad. Listen. Yes. That's funny. Hey, from South Africa. Thank you. Thank you. I love that. Appreciate you. At least it's not the ceiling fan. If you're a Karen reader, you know what that is. Okay, you'll be with me. You got to tune in Melly number 2 because that's going to be a ride. Number 1 was a ride. That'll be a ride for sure. That case was interesting. And then what happened after the case was interesting. I love all the Melly folks, all the people who found me through Melly. Oh, Sweet July is saying it's September 2025 for Melly. Thank you. Actually, what I need to do is find out about the appeal. Once the appeal happens, that's when, oh, you're right. There was an update not too long ago about September 2025. You're right. Thank you for that correction. We need to figure out what happens with the appeal. That's what we're all waiting for because it should have been happened, but there was that appeal. Yeah, and I'm still waiting on Quentin Nixon. I got to get the update on Quentin Nixon for sure. Maybe I'll watch that one live then if we'll see if YSL is still going, but for sure. I do want to follow Karen Reed when she's back. I stopped following like all the documents just because sometimes that is overwhelming, especially when I'm following like a live trial gets a little overwhelming. But I definitely plan when that one comes back, I'll be following that too. Am I missing some? Let me hit y'all up. And after YSL, we all need a mental health break from Galactus, who's also a Patreon member. So shout out, thank you for that.
Court Fulton County now session. Honorable Judge Paige Reese Whitaker presiding. Court come to order.
Good afternoon, everybody can be seated. All right, it is my understanding that the state and Mr. Williams were very close to a negotiated agreement, but have reached an impasse, and that it is Mr. Williams' desire to enter a non-negotiated plea. Is that correct? Am I misinformed?
Moment, please.
All right.
Non-negotiated means fine, meaning you leave it in the hands of the judge. We're not agreeing with the state with the sentence and all of that. You leave it in the hands of a judge.
Do y'all need a minute in private?
Yes.
Okay. All right, we can recess.
Back to the seal. Non-negotiated means we're not able to agree, the two of us, right? And so you leave it in the hands of the judge to decide what the sentencing will be. They both will make their judge, from the state, they'll say basically our perspective, and here's what we think we can prove and have proven. And then, Jeffrey's side will do the same, and then the judge decides. That's a non-negotiated or a blind plea. Sorry, I had to screen record. That's why I was being like that, because I was screen recording, because later on y'all gonna ask for a recap. So I had to do that. Hopefully that made sense though. Does that make sense what I was saying? Y'all check the tweets too if there's anything we need to be focused on. Wow. Wow. Him pausing like that. Wow. Yeah, it's a gamble on Paige. It's a gamble on Paige. It's a gamble on her. It is. Okay, let me finish because I was reading y'all. I'm sorry. Kelly Darling. Is that your last name? Because what a last name. I really appreciate your coverage and commentary. Thank you. Appreciate you. Sleep Easy says, are we more interested in a thug interview or the jury interview? Personally, I want to hear a Max Sharp interview. I want to interview Max Sharp. I want to interview Keith Adams. I want to interview a juror. Then I'd love to interview Doug. I want to interview everybody. That's my truth. Hannah with all the emojis. That's how we all feel. Wait. What emoji are you feeling the most right now? Put in the chat what emoji you feel the most right now. Because I feel like all of them. I think I feel all of them. Low-key, a Paige Whitaker interview? I would too. Wait, let me see what y'all got. Renee, is this your emoji? That's your emoji. Mario says Paige has already concluded that YSL is a game. So if that's what he's taking a gamble, if Paige has concluded that, and meaning the evidence has proven enough that that's a conclusion she can make based off the evidence, then what could that mean? Tiara's emoji. Emily has, I'm assuming your nerves are bad. All the eyes for sure. Deborah, that is stressed out. Listen, all these look, M with the green slime, the green heart, the green snake. Aaliyah has the throw up, the eyes. I think these are funny. These are spot on. These are spot on. Are we all stressed out? So what just happened? Oh, I took my thing down. What just happened is that it seemed that the judge was told that Jeffrey Williams was going to enter into a non-negotiated plea, right? A guilty plea. All of these other pleas have been negotiated, meaning the state and the defense have agreed. They negotiated and came to an agreement for this plea. When it is non-negotiated, it means we cannot decide, we cannot come to an agreement on this plea, and so we will leave sentencing in the hands of the judge. I love all the emojis. But as we saw, it seems like that's what he was prepared to do. And when it came time to it, to accept it, to say it, to agree to it, we went silent. Craving Clarity podcast says, can you imagine what he is feeling is, or Thug, that's supposed to be Thug. Can you imagine what Thug is feeling? My God, I'm praying for him. I think that's the other thing. All the slime ones are funny to me. T. Hudson is saying Thug hesitated because he doesn't want to plead. This is heavy. This is a lot of stuff, right? Like, it's a lot. You're taking a chance. You're taking a chance on a jury. If you go to trial, you're taking a chance and your attorneys, or you're taking a chance on the judge if you do it this way. You know, there's a lot to consider. There's a lot to consider. The RICO alone, I think, was 5 to 20, right? The RICO count, charge one count alone was 5 to 20. He also has, like I said, those possession charges. So what will happen, right? The state would have Hilton, like she's been doing when it comes to maybe the charge about the drugs or the possession of the machine gun, she will read through to the judge, you know, if trial continued, we plan to show that on this day this happened and he was there and they were his, and so she would have walked through all of the evidence that they say they have. And then, you know, maybe we hear from Steele about, you know, why he should be, you know, given no time or whatever he would have argued. And then the judge would have decided, because as you heard for these previous defendants, she has said, I accept the plea agreement that, you know, both of you guys are entering. But at this point, if there's nothing for her to accept, she has to decide. So that's the non-negotiated. Damn, that's me. That's what I do this all the time. When I'm stressed out, I'm like, that's me. But as we saw, when it came time for him to say yes, he didn't. He did not. So I'm missing some more. How will this impact any potential appeals? When you say appeals, you mean for Thug or you mean for some of the other like defendants? Who do you mean with this? She being Judge Paige Whitaker has been giving these pleas, she's been informing the defendants of like the time in which they have to appeal these agreements. So if that's what you mean, or do you mean like for other people? Is he able to reject the plea if he doesn't like what the judge decides? I'm not a lawyer, but no, my understanding is no. That's what makes it blind. You go in, probably not a good name for it, but you go in and you leave it in the hands. You can't say, just kidding, I don't like what you said. It's the risk that you take. Happy and Healthy says you should become a lawyer. Happy and Healthy, I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't want to go to school ever again. Ever again. I don't like school. I like learning, but like casually learning like this. But I don't like learning like forcefully. And I don't like paying to have to learn either. I ain't got no more money. Yeah. So Angie says you should become a parent. I don't even want to do that. Actually, don't want to like work. I don't want to like work in an office. I don't want the drama of that. I want to go to court when I want to go to court and then come home and be with my kids. I missed some more what you guys are saying. You guys want to rewind again? You want to see this, or I'll rewind, but somebody else got to tell me when we got to go back like live. Yes, yes. That for a non-negotiated, they will say, like I said, the state will go through. If we continued, we plan to present that. Oh, and unless you mean more specifically, they'll say what they think he should, like the sentencing. Maybe that's what you're talking about. But it will come down to the judge. Kimberly Craig retiring in a few weeks. Shout out to you. That's amazing. Don't rewind it. I can't stand it again. Okay, stay live. Yes, you can. You can take the bar without going to school. I don't, you got to pay for the bar too. I don't want to take the bar either. And you also, in order to take the bar, you have to like, there's a lot of more things. I can take the baby bar here in California, but I don't, there's a lot, I don't want to. I do want to take the baby bar. I don't want to take the real bar. I'm not interested in that. If the judge rules against Thug, can he appeal it? I think he would have to appeal the voluntariness of the agreement. I mean, of the plea. I don't know. I don't want to answer this because I'm not a lawyer and I don't know the specifics and I don't want to be incorrect or tell you incorrect information. I think in general, you can appeal. You have a certain amount of time to appeal, but I don't think your grounds for appealing being, I don't like what you sentenced me. You can't do that because I think that's the parameters of the blind plea is that you plead your case, you say what you want, the state pleads their case, they say what they want, and then you're like, that's the terms of it, is that you leave it in their hands. So I think it would come down to like the voluntariness of the plea versus like, I don't like what you sentenced me. Does that make sense? Wait, why the Pastor David C. Berkeley said, if I was Thug, I'd be tearing that toilet up. Bubble guts. Hilarious. We're still live. We're still waiting. We're still waiting. Did I miss any more of these things? We were so excited. We got action and then we stopped. Oh, you just said we got movement. Am I behind? Okay, just making sure. Make sure I'm not behind. We can't miss nothing. I mean, I would be nervous too, right? This is heavy. Like I was saying, it's really heavy. And as we just saw, it's up to him, right? Like it comes time and he freezes because it's up to him. His attorneys, Adams, Steele, they can't tell him what to do. That really comes down to him. I think the thing to think about with this trial is that a couple things to think about with any trial, but this one in particular, it's expensive. And obviously, Jeffrey Williams has made a lot of money. Who wants to spend it on a year-long trial, right? So I think the reality that this is expensive. Having counsel, having a trial, having these lawyers, it's expensive. But the other thing is, this is a gamble on jurors. This is a gamble. And while we are like, rah, 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 right? And I say we, but people, because I try to keep my rahs to myself. But the reality is, when it comes to that RICO charge specifically, the requirements needed to be able to get to a guilty plea, if you watch my video about the 3 check boxes, right? Some of the boxes were being checked. And I'm not saying I'm not saying anything other than, even in the mess of the way that the state has been doing things, some of those boxes have been checked. And so when you go to trial, you are betting on it's a risk. So I think that is something else to consider with this, right? With going to trial. We haven't even gotten to him presenting his side, like all of that. It's a lot to consider going to trial, especially if there's potential for, you guys to agree in a different way. I think everybody would love to resolve this, but everybody's perception and perspective about what a good resolution looks like is different. And that's why we are where we are. Shout out to Alex Neal, reminding everybody to like and subscribe. Please like and subscribe to I'm Not a Lawyer. But if you're not a lawyer, like and subscribe. If you are a lawyer, just take out the N. And I'm not a lawyer. You can subscribe and just say I'm a part of I'm Not a Lawyer, even though I am a lawyer, because I'm with that too. And y'all can all the lawyers correct me when I'm wrong. Jesse says, I know Thug is going to pick what is best. I know he has the best counsel guiding him. I 100% believe and agree with that, right? At the end of the day, we've seen these attorneys, and they're not new to this. And so you just hope everybody does what's best for them and is given the best guidance. And, that's all you really can hope for people in general. Wendy Honest Opinion says, I don't trust Paige. I wouldn't let her choose. Think about it. She has been helping the state clean up their mess. I know a lot of people have their opinions about Paige. So you're taking a chance. You're taking a chance. Let me ask you guys. Actually, it's not a good question. I was going to say, would you rather go to trial, but it's expensive? Listen, Kelly Dolan is in here. At least he has seen the prosecution's hand during the plea discussions. Don't forget to like the stream, y'all. Yes, please like the stream. But I think that's the other thing too, is these kind of moments allow each side to see the other hand a little bit. Allow you to say, to engage. What are you thinking? What are you not thinking? Like, it really does allow you to do that. I agree with that. It seems like all about Queep. We're waiting on Thug. It seems as though we are waiting on Jeffrey Williams. Anything happening on X? I haven't checked in a minute. Anybody checked anything happening over there I need to be looking at? So somebody just tagged me on X. Let me pull it up so you guys can see while we wait. So this is GSU on X. I love this page. I'm assuming it's he is a criminal defense attorney. He says, for what it's worth, I think the only way he enters a non-negotiated or blind plea is if it's capped. Here's what capped means. Basically, the state tells the judge what their last best offer was, and the defense tells her what their last best offer was. The judge decides whether to take the state's best offer, the defense's best offer, or something in between. But it's implicitly understood by everyone, including the judge, that the sentence won't be worse than the state's last offer. That's actually a really, that's the kind of stuff I wouldn't even know because I'm not a lawyer and he is. So that's really interesting, right? That's really interesting that they'll still be able, there could be some caps or some borders to this. It's not just, go ham, judge, you can decide, but the last offer from the state, last offer from the defense, and she can take one or the other, or she can choose something in between. So that's something else to consider. Thank you for tagging me in that, by the way. Appreciate you. Let me go back to the stream. Man, listen, I see why people like the chats. Because if y'all tagging me, that's how I can see it. When you're live, you miss everything. That's great. That's a great point. Mona Lisa Vito is the person who tagged me. Appreciate that. One of the WSB reporters is saying lots of drama. Lots of drama here. That's what he said a minute ago. Let me see what else y'all saying. Oh, let me make sure I'm not missing nothing. Nino Brown, do you think other pleas are forcing him to do this? I actually don't. Maybe I'm naive. Maybe you can be like, girl, you so dumb. But I'd like to believe that nothing is being forced about this. I'd like to believe that all of these defendants are I mean, let's be fair, they're going to have conversations with their family, especially if they have kids, if they have a partner, if they have parents. Like, I'm sure all of that goes into their consideration, and then of course advice from counsel and all of that. But I don't think anybody is being forced to do this, especially Jeff. I think this would be something he is weighing. I'm sure he, probably consider, if these people are really his friend, he's probably considering them. But I would imagine that at the end of the day, it's about him, what he wants, what's best for him, what he's able to withstand, all of that. He's been in jail for 2+ years. So I'd imagine that it's not being forced. It's more so, I mean, it's a lot to consider and think about, but it comes down to him. That doesn't mean that he is not considering other things. I just don't think that, maybe I'm harping too much on force, but listen, Allie, I didn't feel like saying Jeffrey Williams, and I always have an issue calling him thug. In this setting, I do. So Jeff just slipped out. I know I don't know that man. I know we are not on a first name basis. I am well aware. But it's Jeffrey Williams. I don't feel like saying that all the time. And I don't like calling him thug in this setting. It just feels like I don't know. It's my own thing. Look, Al said I'd flip a coin. Wait, you flip a coin if you were thug, or you flip a coin if you were Whitaker? King Slime is what they call him. Well, yeah. Apparently, he's also referenced as that. Wait, Lauren said Jeff sounds like an old white man. Okay, my bad. What y'all want me to call him? I'm going to say Jeffrey Williams. I'm sure I missed more of y'all comments. I think I saw somebody say, we've been calling you YSL Mel. Where did that comment go? Oh, there it is. Untouchable TJ. We've been calling you YSL Mel. Listen, Exhibit F was enough for me. Exhibit F was just enough for me to be a part of this trial and feel like I am a part of history. I don't need nothing else. Valpal says he has more connections with SB and Yak, so it might be in his best interest with the cards that are left on the table. So if Doug takes the deal, what happens to the ones that didn't? They continue to trial if they want to go to trial. If Doug takes the deal and the other two say, let's keep going, they keep going. No, that Shanna is saying, does anyone know if Miss Love X account is really her? Because she's talking a lot of crap right now. That's definitely not her. It's a troll account. That's a troll account being funny. This thing is not. How long have we been waiting? Well, it's 1:16. We started at 45-ish. So, and I mean, we were only live for 3 minutes. So, probably what, 20, 30 minutes? Okay, fine. Y'all ain't gonna let me have it, huh? I'm really over here going through it. Oh, that's what I should call him. Truly humble under God. Blue, you missed like 2, 3 minutes of Thug, but it wasn't for a long. Look, I'm calling him Thug now. It wasn't for a long time. The judge said he was prepared to take a non-negotiated plea, but then when she was asking to confirm that, it wasn't confirmed. It was silence. So we are now. She said, "Do you need a minute?" And so we wait. Now we're waiting for them to come back. Cynthia Kane says, "You ready for this to be over? What's next for us?" I am ready for this to be resolved. I am ready for this to be resolved. I personally don't believe any trial should take this long. That's why I'm ready for it to be over or resolved, because I think this is insane that a trial should take this long for everybody. I don't think the state, like, for the jurors, for the other people whose cases are held up because this trial has taken over a year. For many reasons, I think that's why I'm over this, and this should be resolved for many reasons. But yeah, what's next though is I don't know. I tell you what, I'm gonna take like a week and do nothing though, and like not have to worry about waking up and catching a trial. Like when this is over, I'm going to take some time, a real vacation, and not think about this trial. But yes, I'll be looking for the next thing for sure. Really, and say, y'all, what are we gonna do? Uh-oh, here's a prediction. I bet court is over for the day. You think we're not gonna get a resolution? Are you gonna keep covering the case if Thug takes a deal? I actually intend to, for sure. One of the reasons is I'm very curious if Thug were to take a deal and Shannon and Yak are left. I'm very interested in the pivot of the case. Again, this is like
All right. Mr. Steele, Mr. Adams, Mr. Williams, where are we? Ready to go forward? All right. Y'all coming up here to the podium. All right, Sergeant, can you swear in Mr. Williams?
Raise your right hand, you swear firm testimony you give to the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. That's your name, first and last. You might just spell first and last. Jeffrey Williams.
Jeffrey Williams, Jefffery, Williams.
Good afternoon, Mr. Williams.
Good afternoon.
Are you the same Jeffrey Williams indicted in case number? Your Honor,
Yes, ma'am.
actually, have we all signed the indictment, or are we going to do that afterwards? Because I don't have a copy of it.
I don't know the answer to that.
I don't believe that we
We
have.
have not signed the indictment.
Okay, probably be a good idea to do that.
Does anyone have a copy? Because you don't? Okay.
Where's the one we were using yesterday? We'll do that in just a minute. You can go ahead with the colloquy.
And Your Honor, we don't have the waiver form as well. I believe that the court had one.
That right here.
I've got blanks. Y'all filled one out, right?
We have.
Okay.
How tall is Thug? He's tall.
Mr. Williams, are you the same Jeffrey Williams indicted in case number 22SC183572?
Yes.
Okay. And are you also known as Young Thug?
Yes.
Are you at this time taking or under the influence of any alcohol, drugs, or medication?
No.
Is there any medication that you normally take that you have not been given today?
No.
How old are you?
33.
And how far have you gone in school?
9.
Say that one more time.
9.
Okay. Are you able to read, write, and understand the English language?
Yes.
All right. Do you understand that you are charged with the following offenses? Conspiracy to violate the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, participation in criminal street gang activity, the leadership charge, participation in criminal street gang activity, violation of the Georgia Controlled Substances Act, 3 counts, possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, and possession of a machine gun. Do you understand that?
Yes.
All right. And do you understand that you have the right to plead either guilty or not guilty to these charges, and that if you plead not guilty or remain silent, you will continue to receive a jury trial?
Yes.
All right. And have you received this waiver of rights form that I hold in my hand from your attorney and reviewed it with your attorney?
Yes.
All right. And is this your signature on the bottom of this form?
Yes.
Have you had enough time to speak with your attorneys, Mr. Steele and Mr. Adams, about all of the facts and circumstances known to you regarding the charges in indictment 22SC183572, including any potential defenses?
Yes.
Do you need additional time to discuss this case with your attorneys?
No.
Are you satisfied with their services?
Yes.
Mr. Steele and Mr. Adams, do you on behalf of Mr. Williams waive a formal reading of this indictment?
Yes, Your Honor, we do.
And do you, Mr. Williams, waive any and all defects in this indictment, including any with respect to your name?
Yes.
Have you been arrested on these charges?
Yes.
The state is unaware of any outstanding warrants related to these charges. Do you or your attorneys know of any outstanding warrants related to these charges?
Any what?
Outstanding warrants related to any of the charges in the indictment?
No,
No.
I don't believe so either, Your Honor.
Okay, and I'm unaware of any as well, Your Honor.
I am as well.
Thank you. Have your attorneys advised you of the minimum and maximum sentence for each of the crimes that you are charged with?
Yes.
And each of the charges that you are pleading guilty to?
Yes.
All right. Your Honor, with respect to the charges that Mr. Williams faces, count 1 carries a minimum charge of 5 years and a maximum charge of 20 years in prison, or up to a $25,000 fine, or both.
Isn't it a $15,000 fine, because wasn't it the version of the statute in effect at the time, or was that the same for RICO? Was RICO 25?
Yes,
Back-
RICO was
okay.
25.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Count 56 carries a minimum sentence of 5 years in prison, a maximum of 20 years in prison, consecutive to any other sentence, with a fine of $10,000 to $15,000, or both.
Okay.
Count 57 carries a minimum sentence of 5 years in prison and a maximum sentence of 20 years in prison. Count 58 carries a minimum sentence of 1 and a maximum sentence of 10 years in prison. Count 59 carries a sentence range of 5 to 30 years in prison. Count 60 carries a sentence.
Hang on, slow down just a second. All right, and that's for the amount of that drug that was found on 59, 5 to 30?
That's as a result of the charge itself, I believe, with intent to distribute.
I think that 59, Your Honor, is
Uh-huh.
simple possession of cocaine. I have to look at the indictment to be
I think
sure.
that's 60.
Okay.
Let me look.
Okay.
Hey, Your Honor, 59 is codeine and
Yes.
60 is cocaine.
Yes.
So,
Your Honor, it is with the intent to distribute. So my reading of the statute is that it carries the range of 5 to 30.
okay.
And Your Honor, also, as I have the indictment in my hand from Ms. Rosser, may I pass it to counsel for Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, I'll permit time for
ahead.
them to, okay. Count 60 carries a range of 1 to 5 years in prison. Count 61 carries a mandatory 5 years consecutive to the underlying felony. Count 62 carries a sentence of 10 years consecutive for a total maximum exposure of 120 years in prison.
All right.
Were you aware of that, Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Do you understand that neither the court nor the district attorney's office has anything to do with parole or the Department of Corrections or the Board of Pardons and Paroles, and that if you are sentenced to confinement in the Georgia Department of Corrections, no one can guarantee parole?
You can say yes.
Well.
She asked you, do you want to say that?
Oh,
you can
yes,
guarantee
ma'am.
Parole.
Your Honor, may I allow Mr. Williams time to finish signing the indictment?
Okay.
Your Honor, with permission, may I approach with a member of Mr. Williams' team?
You may.
Thank you.
We getting into it, guys. So she just read through all of his charges. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 8 total charges. Obviously includes the RICO count, includes the gang count, the leader of the gang count. Sorry, hold on.
Of Mr. Williams' team.
You may.
Thank you.
I told y'all I'm screen recording for my recap, but he has the 8 counts, and it was a maximum. If he had been convicted and given the maximum sentence for all of the charges, he was looking at up to 120 years. But I think what's also interesting is I don't think, well, obviously it wasn't this kind of plea. It seems like it's still a non-negotiated plea. That's what it appears to be. Excuse me. And so the inclusion of the fines, I think, was interesting. Because will there be a fine included with this? That is really interesting. Will Whitaker include some fines and not jail time? Or everybody.
Mr. Williams, do you understand that this is a non-negotiated plea of guilty, and that since your guilty plea is a blind plea or a non-negotiated plea, the state is making a recommendation of sentencing to the court, notwithstanding the fact that this is a blind plea? You understand that, Mr. Williams? Okay. And Mr. Williams, were you aware of the state's previous offer that was turned down prior to your making this non-negotiated plea?
Yes.
All right. And Your Honor, at this time, the state is making a recommendation of 45 years with 25 to serve in custody, followed by 20 on probation, subject to the special requirements of 1615 the gang statute.
All right, and do you want to break down for me what your recommended sentence on each count is?
Yes, Your Honor. The state is recommending on count 1, 5 years to serve. Count 56, 20 years to serve consecutively to count 1. Count 57, 5 years of probation to serve consecutively to count 56. Count 58, 10 years of probation to serve concurrently with count 57. Count 59, 5 years of probation to serve concurrently with count 57 and 58. Count 60, 5 years of probation concurrent with count 57, 58, and 59. Count 61, 5 years of probation consecutive to count 57. And count 62, 10 years of probation consecutive to count 61.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Williams, did you discuss the state's previous offer with your attorneys?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, and so we're all clear that we're talking about the same thing. Can you put what the state's previous offer was on the record for me, please?
I can, Your Honor.
Thank you.
The state's previous offer was a total of 43 years with 20 years, 5 years to serve on count 56, commuted to time served, followed by 15 years on probation. On count 58, the sentence was 10 years to serve in the Georgia Department of Corrections, consecutive to count 56. Count 59 was 3 years to serve in the Georgia Department of Corrections, consecutive to counts 56 and 58. Count 60 was 5 years to serve in the Georgia Department of Corrections, consecutive to counts 56, 58, and 59. Count 61 was 5 years to serve in the Georgia Department of Corrections, consecutive to counts 56, 58, 59, and 60.
Was that the entirety of
No.
what the sentence was?
No, Your Honor,
I mean, I
I'm
know
still
there were
reading.
special conditions, so y'all were
There
going to
are.
null cross
Yeah,
what? 1
yeah.
and 62?
Yes, as part
Okay.
of the recommended sentence, in exchange for the defendant agreeing to the special conditions that we asked the court to impose, the state was willing to null pros count 1, count 57, and count 62.
Okay, and then all of that consecutive to the probation, that was going to be what we call backloaded, and what were y'all proposing with regard to that, since it was
The
going to
total-
follow the probated sentence?
The total sentence was 43 years to serve, with the first 5 years in prison commuted to time served, followed by 15 years on probation, followed by 23 years in prison, which would have been served in confinement, except that if defendant had complied with the special conditions of probation imposed as part of this sentence, the backloaded portion of defendant's sentence would have been commuted. However, should defendant had violated any special condition of probation within the first 15 years of his sentence, his probated sentence would have immediately been revoked, and he would have been required to serve the entire remainder of his sentence confined to the Georgia Department of Corrections.
All right, so as long as he had successfully completed his 15 years of probation, the 23 years that was going to follow it was going to be commuted to time served as long as his probation was successful. Is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
And would the court like for us to?
No, I was really more interested in the length of sentence and what y'all had. I know you didn't reach agreement, but y'all, that's what the last offer had been with, of course, a bunch of special conditions, which I guess is where the hangup is. I don't know.
Right, defendant did not want to agree to the
Okay.
special conditions.
All right. Is that basically your understanding too, Mr.
Yes, Your
Steele
Honor.
and
It would have
Mr.
been,
Adams?
yes, Your Honor, Mr. Williams would have been released today for 15 years on probation. If he successfully completes that probation, then he would not have to go to custody. If he did not, he'd face probation revocation as well as 23 years, as the court said, backloaded in the Georgia prison system. But we
Okay.
could not come to terms on all the conditions that the district attorney was insisting upon.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Love.
Okay. And Mr. Williams, were you aware of that previous offer as well as all of the requirements that that offer would have entailed?
Yes.
And had you had enough time to discuss that particular offer with your attorneys?
Yes.
All right,
The previous one?
the previous offer.
Yes.
Do you understand that the court can impose any sentence authorized by law, including a higher sentence than that recommended by the state, up to the maximum sentence on each charge in this indictment? Do you understand that, Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Do you understand that if you enter into a non-negotiated plea, you do not have a right to withdraw your plea once the sentence has been announced?
Yes.
Do you understand that this is a guilty plea which is permanently recorded on your criminal history?
Yes.
Do you understand that this plea may be used to enhance sentencing on other convictions in this jurisdiction as well as in other jurisdictions, including in the federal courts?
Yes.
Do you understand that if you are currently on probation or parole, your probation or parole may be revoked based on your entering a guilty plea today?
I'm not on probation.
Okay, so you're
Yeah,
not on
if you
probation.
were on probation,
Yes, yes.
but if you're not, then it doesn't matter.
Okay. Do you understand that if you are placed on probation of any kind by this court, you cannot violate any criminal laws of any governmental unit or any special conditions of probations without being subject to revocation for the balance of the sentence the court imposes?
Yes, I know.
Do you understand that you are not allowed to possess or use a firearm while on probation?
Yes.
Do you understand that if you are not a United States citizen, a guilty plea conviction will affect your immigration status and will result in deportation, just like a conviction at a trial would, and that this is true regardless of any advice by your attorney or anyone else?
Yes.
Do you understand that neither the court, your attorney, nor the district attorney's office has anything to do with parole, and the Department of Corrections or Board of Pardons and Paroles, and that no one can guarantee parole no matter what anyone has told you?
Yes.
Do you understand that there may be other adverse or unfavorable consequences as a result of this guilty plea conviction, just as there would be from a conviction following a trial? For example, your guilty plea may affect the right to vote, the right to hold public office, the right to serve on a jury, the right to obtain a passport, the right to receive, possess, or transport a firearm, or the ability to obtain employment. Do you understand that, Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Do you understand that by pleading guilty to a felony, if you use, receive, possess, or transport a firearm, or if you use a firearm in a crime, you will be guilty of a felony which may carry a sentence of up to 1 to 15 years in prison.
Yes.
Okay? Do you understand that you waive any and all defenses, including any mental health defenses, by entering a plea of guilty?
Yes.
Do you understand that if you went to trial, you would have the right to that if you continued at trial, rather, you would continue to have the right to a trial by jury, the right to see, hear, and confront witnesses called to testify against you, and the right to testify or to remain silent and not incriminate yourself? Do you understand all of those things?
Yes.
Do you understand that by pleading guilty, you are giving up the following rights? The right to a trial by jury. Do you understand that?
Yes.
The right to remain silent and not incriminate yourself.
Yes.
The right to confront witnesses against you.
Yes.
The right to continued assistance of counsel hired by you or to court-appointed counsel if you cannot afford an attorney at the continued trial of your case.
Yes.
The right to the presumption of innocence.
Yes.
The right to testify on your own behalf and to present other evidence.
Yes.
The right to subpoena witnesses and compel the production of evidence.
Yes.
The right to have the charges against you proven beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yes.
The right to appeal if convicted of these charges after a trial. Do you understand?
Yes.
Has anyone forced, threatened, or promised you anything to get you to enter a guilty plea?
No.
Is it your decision to waive these rights and enter a guilty plea because you are in fact guilty?
Yes.
Well, Your Honor, may I interject?
You may.
Your Honor, on count 1, which is the racketeering conspiracy count, Mr. Williams is tendering a plea under nolo contendere. As to count 56, which is participation in a criminal street gang activity as being a leader or a supervisor or organizer, Mr. Williams is also tendering a plea to this honorable court as under nolo contendere. The balance of the counts, so he is tendering a guilty plea.
Your Honor,
Yes, ma'am.
would the court like to hear from the state or not?
About the NOLO issues?
Yes.
Sure.
Your Honor, the state asked that the court not accept a nolo plea and require either a guilty plea or a not guilty plea as to these charges.
All right. I'm going to permit a NOLO plea as to counts 1 and 56.
All right. Mr. Williams. As to count 57, participation in criminal street gang activity, how do you plead?
I plead guilty.
As to count 58, violation of the Georgia Controlled Substances Act, how do you plead?
Guilty.
As to count 59, violation of the Georgia Controlled Substances Act, how do you plead?
Guilty.
As to count 60, violation of the Georgia Controlled Substances Act, how do you plead?
Guilty.
As to count 61, possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, how do you plead?
Guilty.
And as to count 1, conspiracy to violate the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, how do you plead?
Nolo.
As to count 56, participation in criminal street gang activity under the leadership charge, how do you plead?
Nolo.
I think you didn't ask about count 62.
As to count, thank you, Your Honor. As to count 62, possession of a machine gun, how do you plead?
Guilty.
Are you pleading guilty to the offenses you have indicated because you are in fact guilty of these charges?
Yes.
All right. Are your guilty pleas and your nolo pleas freely and voluntarily given with the full knowledge of the charges against you?
Yes.
Do you understand that you may have only a limited right to appeal this guilty plea conviction?
Yes.
Do you understand that you have only 4 years from today's date for a felony charge and 12 months from today's date you don't have a misdemeanor charge, but to file a habeas corpus petition challenging the voluntariness and constitutionality of this guilty plea?
Yes.
Your Honor, also, do
And
you,
You have
my-
30 days from
I was-
today to file a direct appeal from this guilty plea and until the end of this term of court to file a motion seeking to withdraw the guilty plea, which does not mean it would be granted, but that's the time period, okay?
What's a direct appeal?
Well, you can talk to your attorneys more about it, but it would be up to one of the, like the Court of Appeals, I think is where this one would go. Those just the
And-
time periods.
and Your Honor, the state, in addition to the sentence we are asking that the court to impose,
Okay.
we would also be asking the court to require or to forfeit, have defendant forfeit all of the property that has been seized and that is currently being held, that was found or recovered or taken from his home after it was searched on May 9th.
Do you have any kind of list of what that property is? I mean, I'm not familiar with what was seized.
And Your Honor, we're
We-
not,
We
we're not
do, and
agreeing.
that,
Oh, I know, I mean, I assume y'all aren't agreeing to anything.
not
but you
agreeing
would
to that.
We're not.
Present it as a negotiated plea.
we're not. But we do have a list of the
All right.
property
Do you have it
items.
where available right now?
Yes, actually, would the court permit us to send it electronically?
Sure,
Because we
that's fine. And then if that is not imposed as a condition, is it just get litigated as like any forfeiture matter?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a
it
s-
would be litigated
it's a
later
s-
on,
It's
yes.
a civil separate filing
Okay.
in this court. It's not related to the criminal.
right.
It's related case, but it's unrelated.
Understood.
And we are sending that to
All
Your
right.
Honor
Thank you.
at this time. And as it relates to the conditions of a conviction under 1615-4, Your Honor, we would ask, or as part of the sentence, defendant would be required to adhere to the requirements, the sentencing requirements of the gang statute, which at least in part require that he not associate with any gang members whatsoever. And I can read the rest of that into the record if the court requires, or I can continue with the factual basis.
All right, and let me ask you, because I know that at least while y'all were negotiating, one of the things that I guess was being negotiated was some exception for, I think, somebody that is contractually obligated on his record label. Is that something that the state would still be in agreement to?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
All right. Your Honor, as part of the requirements of 1615-4,
Yes.
defendant would, one moment, Your Honor. Under 1615-4, in addition to any other penalty provided by the code section, all sentences imposed under the code section shall require as a special condition of the sentence that the person sentenced shall not knowingly
Slow down
have.
just a tad, because there's a
My
court reporter
apologies.
taking it down. And when we start reading, we read really fast. So go ahead.
This code section shall require as a special condition of the sentence that the person sentenced shall not knowingly have contact of any kind or character with any other member or associate of a criminal street gang, shall not participate in any criminal gang activity, and in cases involving a victim, shall not knowingly have contact of any kind or character with any such victim or any member of any such victim's family or household. So that is, and we've listed in our indictment the victims of the crimes, the overt acts that have been committed, and under the basic conspiracy law, those are the victims that we are naming. Your Honor, as this case has been tried and would continue to be tried until the state completed its case in chief, the evidence has shown that the defendant, through Throughout the time between 2013 to 2022, conspired with both indicted and unindicted co-conspirators to participate in the enterprise known as Young Slime Life, or YSL, through a pattern of racketeering activity. Throughout that time, multiple conspirators, both indicted and unindicted, and including the defendant, have committed overt acts intended to further the enterprise itself. With regard to the defendant, as far back, the evidence has shown, as 2013, the defendant, along with other YSL founding members, Walter Murphy, for one, committed an aggravated assault and armed robbery against a Derek Dotson. The court has heard evidence of that presented through Adrian Bean, who was a co-conspirator in that particular act. The armed robbery of an Archillian Bennett back in 2013. As alleged in the indictment, defendant and unindicted and indicted co-conspirators committed acts.
I'm gonna keep going. I just need to scream for a second. Okay, I'm sorry. I'll keep going. I just need to scream. I need to get it out. Okay.
To further YSL that included drug sales, aggravated assault, and murder. They used and furthered, rather, this conspiracy by using social media posts and music to assert the violent nature of and the dominance of Young Slime Life, which is also known as YSL. The defendant is charged with being a leader of the gang YSL, and evidence has been presented by accomplices and co-founders of YSL, Trontavia Stevens and Walter Murphy, and evidence would have been presented, in the words of the defendant himself, that the defendant, as shown by some of his own social media postings, was the founder, one of the founders of YSL, along with Mr. Stevens and Mr. Murphy. YSL formed, according to the evidence that has come out in this trial, in 2012, 2013, under the former version of the name of the gang called Rock Crew, or Raised on Cleveland. The court has heard evidence of the 2014 and 2015 incidents that have involved conflicts between YSL members and IF gang members, that included someone shooting the window of Mr. Williams' car, and armed individuals rushing outside during shootings at Club Crucial to ensure Mr. Williams' safety, shootings at a place called the Dugout, where armed individuals rushed to ensure Mr. Williams' safety, shootings at Mr. Kelvin Watts committed by members of YSL, communication with members of YSL after those incidents, and ultimately the murder of Donovan Thomas at the hands of members of YSL. The evidence has shown and will show that on January 10th of 2015, members of YSL drove a car rented by the defendant, a gray Infiniti, and drove past Mr. Thomas as he stood outside of a barber shop congregating with friends, and unloaded an array of bullets on Mr. Thomas, hitting him, his Chevrolet Tahoe, and 2 other persons in the process. Mr. Thomas died from those bullets. Phone records show that communication was held between Mr. Williams, Mr. Kelvin Treadwell, Mr. Demise McMullen, corroborating accomplice testimony that has been presented in this courtroom regarding what happened, who committed the murder, and what happened to the guns and the vehicles that were used in the murder. After the murder of Donovan Thomas Jr., the members of YSL responsible for the murder and members of YSL who were not responsible for the murder congregated at Mr. Williams' condominium called the Sky House, and they all made plans and later either drove or flew down to Miami. Prior factual acknowledgments by members of YSL include that Mr. Williams gave each of the persons who accompanied him to Miami money to lay low as they left the city following the murder of Mr. Thomas. The evidence has shown the ensuing conflict that occurred after Mr. Thomas was killed. It has shown shootings at Mr. Rashawn Bennett's home, shootings at Mr. Darren Mills' mother's home, and I said Mr. Rashawn Bennett's mother's home. Shootings unrelated to the conflict with members of If Gang, of a Lil Wayne tour bus. That shooting followed the confronting by Atlanta Police Department of members of YSL that drove to the compound where Lil Wayne was making an appearance and who drove there with the intent to disrupt and cause harm and to shoot up Lil Wayne's tour bus. Lil Wayne was another artist with whom Mr. Williams was having conflict, according to the testimony that had been presented. Mr. Williams had come out at that time with a mixtape that carried the name of an album that Mr. Carter was set to release and was not able to because his label would not allow that to happen. That caused a contractual or the threat of a lawsuit. It caused Mr. Williams angst. He posted about it. He said derogatory things about the persons who were threatening him with the lawsuit. And as a result, he had to rename his mixtape to something different than what he initially intended. The person who ultimately was convicted of shooting that tour bus up, Jimmy Winfrey, is a person that I believe that recordings have come in regarding jail phone calls, rather, from Mr. Winfrey and members of YSL regarding communication about getting a lawyer. Following the shootings that occurred in 2015.
I'm just muting really quick just because there's few people commenting. I won't take long because I don't want to be behind, but he is accepting the non-negotiated plea. And so as a part of that, because the non-negotiated plea is up to the judge. So as a part of that, right now, Love is going through, she already went through what their recommendation is. She is now going through what she says evidence has shown or will show had they continued with the trial. This is all information for the judge to consider as she determines what the sentence is. She's going first. As we've seen, next up will be the defense. They will put across what their arguments are, talk about his life, give him leniency, all of that, and then the judge will decide. That's where we are, okay? She is just putting across what she says would have been shown had the trial continued. This part is normal.
Music, social media postings, and other overt acts were committed by Mr. Williams and other members of YSL, taunting members of groups that they considered opposition to YSL, posting of threats of violence by members of YSL against those people. Specifically, the music, Your Honor, contained lyrics such as the following. I rep my life for real. For slimes, you know I kill. Take it to trial, get an appeal, take it to trial. Pay for that casket. That's just if we whack them. YSL slimy and shady. Watch me whack that bitch. Pop them like a cyst. Glock with the assist. Of a song wherein Mr. Williams sang or rapped the lyrics. Hey, this is that slime shit, that YSL shit, killing 12 shit, fuck a jail shit. I'm in the VIP. I got the pistol on my hip. Fuck the police. You praying that you live. I'm praying that I hit. This that slime shit. 100 rounds in a Tahoe. I'm prepared to take them down. Got banana clips for all these ends acting monkey. This is that slime shit. This is that mob shit. Fuck the judge. YSL. This that mob life. Defendant Williams released a video on YouTube of a song wherein he states, I shot at his mommy. Now he no longer mentions me. Act like you want war and they gonna smoke you like a blunt. I don't care nothing about a cop. I'm just telling you how it is. I done did the robbing. I done did the jacking. Now I'm full rapping. Gave the lawyer close to $2 million. He handles all the killing. We don't speak about shit on wax. It's all my business. We know to kill the biggest cats of all kittens. I was on Pay for that casket. That's just if we whack them. And yet another song, Defendant Williams raps, red just like Elmo, but I never fucking giggle. YSL won't fold. Pick his ass off from the balcony, wipe an end's nose. I'm gonna F for the cash, then she getting robbed by Tick, a reference to Trontavia Stevens. All I ever wanted was the money. Put your hands in the air if you dare. F and N, put him in a wheelchair. And even later on, Mr. Williams, and I believe that this was in 2019, made a post to YFN Lucci or Rayshawn Bennett. If I ain't like what you do for your mother and kids, I would have been killed you. And in yet another song entitled Anybody, Defendant Williams stated, I never killed anybody, but I got something to do with that body. I got the streets on my back, carry it like I'm moving a body. I told them to shoot 100 rounds like he trying to movie the body. Ready for war like I'm Russia. I get all types of cash. I'm a general. As Mr. Williams' prominence in the music industry rose, his ascension within or in leadership in the gang YSL became more apparent as he rapped and talked about the crimes that YSL co-conspirators and members committed and how he got away with robberies. With respect to the Donovan Thomas murder, The court has heard evidence through phone records that within 6 minutes of the shooting of Donovan Thomas Jr., a phone call was made from Demise McMullen's cell phone to defendant Williams' phone. And then immediately after that call, Mr. Williams calls his sister Dora Greer and then calls Kelvin Treadwell. There's then a series of calls between Dora Greer and Treadwell, and then Treadwell calls Demise McMullen or Nard. All of those calls happen within 15 minutes of the 911 call. And as I have stated before, the court has heard accomplice prior inconsistent statements about who committed the murder itself and what happened afterwards. The conflict between YSL and members of IF Gang continued into 2019, wherein Mr. Williams raps the lyrics that I referred to earlier. In May 2019, a YSL member shot multiple times at a vehicle owned by Rayshawn Bennett, a black and red Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon. At the time was being driven by a Milton Howard Jr. It was after that incident, later in August 2019, that defendant Williams posted on his page the language, YFN, if I ain't like what you do for your mother and kids, I would have been killed you. The post was then deleted from his account. Through text messages of a co-conspirator, Marquavius Huey, there was communication between Mr. Huey and Mr. Williams, both in January and in September of 2020. On January 19th, 2020, Mr. Williams sent a flyer to Marquavius Huey with the performance location of Rayshawn Bennett or YFN Lucci. And when he sent that, he sent it with the message, "Handle that tonight, SLAT, SLATT. Mr. Huey responded, SLAT, SLATT. On September 2nd, 2020, Mr. Huey sent a flyer to Mr. Williams with another performance location of YFN Lucci, and Mr. Williams responded, SLATTY, that is SLATTY, handle, and stay very low. Mr. Huey responded, SLAT, and for show, FASHO. I've been out the way and appreciate you for everything, my brother. Never about money with me. I'm built on loyalty. Mr. Williams responded, SLAT, handle that. I got you. Through text messages and on a separate occasion, Mr. Huey said and conveyed to Mr. Williams that he would sit down for any one of them. And I believe that to be a reference of going to jail. When Mr. Bennett was not killed in 2022, Jaden Myrick sought permission from defendant Williams to stab Mr. Bennett while Mr. Bennett resided with Mr. Myrick at the jail. Mr. Myrick reached out to co-indictee Khalif Adams, who reached out to co-indictee Demikion Garlington to get permission from Mr. Williams. Demikion Garlington was also involved in the back and forth shootings back in 2015. On February 9th, 2022, Rayshawn Bennett was stabbed by Jaden Myrick at the Fulton County Jail. And after that stabbing, Mr. Myrick reached out multiple times to Mr. Adams for some type of compensation for the stabbing. Mr. Adams reached out to Mr. Garlington about the payment for the completion. On February the 22nd, 2022, YSL co-conspirator and co-indictee Christian Eppinger called YSL co-conspirator Antonio Sumlin to get permission to finish what Mr. Myrick could not complete, that is the killing of Mr. Bennett. Mr. Eppinger asked for payment for a lawyer. However, these calls were intercepted and Mr. Bennett was relocated. In March 2022, information about the stabbing made the news, and shortly thereafter, a series of violent offenses occurred. On March 11, 2022, YSL associates Christian McMiller and Darius Ford were gunned down. Mr. McMiller is a childhood friend of Mr. Williams. Mr. Ford was also a friend of Mr. Williams. On March 12th, the day after, there was a shootout near the Cleveland Avenue area. A shooting by a YSL associate, Stephen Harris, in YFN territory occurred, and a YFN member was shot in the head. March 11th through March 14th, there were a number of social media posts going back and forth between members of YSL and YFN. One of them was a post by Shannon Stillwell's, "We ain't the only ones who ain't gonna be crying, that's going to be crying." After a posting was made by Mr. Watts picturing him, Mr. Shamel Drinks, and Mr. Jasper Walters, on March 14th, 2022, after YSL members spotted Mr. Drinks at a gas station, Mr. Drinks was gunned down as he drove away from the gas station and waited at a red light. Later, Mr. Stillwell, Mr. Nichols, Mr. Garlington, and Mr. Farley were all charged with the murder. That is one of the acts that we are still and would anticipate the court seeing the evidence of during the course of this trial. After grand jury warrants were issued after this indictment for Mr. Williams and 27 other co-conspirators, following searches of phones, wiretaps, and other information that led police to understand the role that Mr. Williams played in the YSL street gang and enterprise. Mr. Williams' home, he was arrested at his home and a search warrant was executed inside his home. While at his home, a sale amounts of illegal narcotics, including those that he is charged with in this indictment, was found. Also found was the machine gun with which the defendant has been charged in this indictment. The gun had a switch. The narcotics included marijuana, codeine, and cocaine. And inside the home were also other guns besides the guns with the switch. The items were seized, and again, Mr. Williams was subsequently arrested, along with other YSL members at Mr. Williams' home. Your Honor, that is the evidence that I believe has been shown throughout the course of this trial and that the state would continue to show. There are several messages between Mr. Huey and Mr. Williams inside the cell phone one of the cell phones that were recovered from Mr. Huey. Besides the messages about tells Mr. Williams he has a new number. Mr. Huey asks Mr. Williams, "Hey, my brother, I'm fucked up. You ain't got nobody I can pull up on and have something in my pocket." Mr. Williams responds, "Slat, let me call BEO." Mr. Huey responding, "Slat, I need you, my brother." Mr. Huey saying, asking whether or not a lawyer was going to go and talk to another YSL associate, asking Mr. Williams to send him some money to pay his lawyer off. Mr. Williams asking Mr. Huey, who had been accused of armed robbery, what did he want? Mr. Huey responded with a number. Mr. Williams responded, "Slat." After Mr. Williams stole a star ring from one of the victims in the indictment, he asked Mr. Williams, "Do you have a star ring?" Mr. Williams said, "Yes." Mr. Huey said, "Slat, you can't cash at me $500 so I can make a payment to my lawyer." Mr. Williams responded, "Slat." Mr. Huey sent him his phone number. Mr. Williams assured him through his responses, Slat, that he would take care of them. Throughout Mr. Huey's phone, you see messages of this nature between Mr. Huey and Mr. Williams. The court, again, will hear that as this trial continues. The recommendation that the state previously made prior to us reaching this point was made with the hope that Mr. Williams would agree to certain special conditions of probation that we asked him to adhere to, and that he would take ownership and responsibility for being the leader of YSL. Given that those negotiations have broken down, we are asking that the court sentence Mr. Williams as we have asked earlier. And prior to the court imposing a sentence, we would ask that Ms. Shawana Edmonds, who is the mother of Mr. Thomas, be allowed an opportunity to make an impact statement. And that is all that we have, unless the court has questions.
Okay, well, given that Mr. Williams is not charged with the murder of Mr. Thomas, I don't think that that is applicable here.
I checked on that, Your Honor, with respect to count one. As a co-conspirator, Mr. Williams is responsible for all of the acts of the other co-conspirators, the overt acts. The overt act of the murder of Donovan Thomas is one of those acts.
I know, and this trial is not complete, and so y'all have not yet proven that. Not to mention that you dismissed the murder charge against one of the co-defendants who already pled, so.
Not
All
for
right.
that case, Your Honor. That was Mr. Drinks.
Okay.
We have not dismissed any.
All right, well, if there's a conviction on the RICO or murder count following the close of this trial, that would be the appropriate time for the victim impact statement to be made. All right, Mr. Steele or Mr. Adams, does the defense want to put anything on the record? Obviously, you need to make a recommendation.
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Many of the statements made by the prosecutor, we vehemently disagree with. The prosecutor misstated many pieces of evidence and then took liberty that that is the state's theory. Mr. Williams has tendered a nolo contendere plea to the RICO conspiracy count. And in that count, there are several overt acts. And the first one, Your Honor, deals with a traffic stop. It's on September 9th of 2013. And I won't go through every one because it might take a long time, but just for completeness for this, as court knows, Mr. Williams is driving a car. There is a dash cam video of the stop. The officer who testified at the trial 11 years later, the case was a gun was found under the passenger seat. Mr. Williams is not tied to the gun. He's not convicted of that. And the dash cam video that the officer said would have picked up sound as well as definitely video was never turned over to us, supposedly lost. Could not explain the loss. The armed robbery in another overt act of Mr. Dodson, D-O-D-S-O-N, has the following information. The state only, because we haven't called witnesses yet. So the state put up a man who said nothing except, "I don't recall." And then they put in his prior recorded jail calls. That man was taken, his name is Mr. Bean, B-E-A-N. He was taken to Grady Hospital and he was spoken with by a detective. The state vehemently accused me of lying to the jury, that the man never went, Mr. Bean was never taken to Grady Hospital, and that somehow I planted on him to say something on a recording where he said, the reason I implicated Jeffrey Williams is because the police told me that it would be easier for me. Then I had to go through the CAD reports and show that Mr. Bean was in fact taken to Grady Hospital, and Mr. Bean on recording told Detective Quinn, who of course told the truth. Yes, when I spoke to the detective previously, I did lie. Then what the state doesn't tell the jury is that there's another man in the car. He is shot at the scene. He's arrested. He pled guilty. His name is Fred Prethro, P-R-E-T-H-O. And Mr. Prethro is in the Georgia State Prison System, easy to find. Mr. Prethro was in Grady Hospital also, unfortunately suffering from a gunshot wound. And you can hear the medical equipment behind him. And Detective Williams came in and was recording the whole conversation and said how many people were in the car. And Mr. Prethro names the people: Adrian Bean, who's the gentleman I just said, himself, and Walter Murphy. Are you sure there weren't a fourth person in the car? No, the three of us. The state doesn't call that person. The state does call Detective Williams. So I wanted to ask and inquire on that. The state, to obstruct, if that's obstruction, asked the predecessor court to prohibit me from getting into the fact of any conversation that would have impeached another witness. It's fine. Fred Prethro's on my witness list as well as the detective, and I have the recordings. In addition to that, Walter Murphy gave a statement while in the hospital, and his statement is very interesting. It's two different police reports, signed the same date, which is September 11th of 2013. And on the first 7 lines of the police report, they're identical. Then all of a sudden, when it gets to on the right-hand police report, it says Mr. Murphy stated that there were 3 people, I believe, I have to go back, in the vehicle. On the other police report, it states Mr. Murphy stated there were 4 people. There's no reason that they should be different. They're both signed the same. The state doesn't call that officer at all. I tried to ask Mr. Murphy about it. The state objects, and the predecessor judge sustained the objection. Mr. Williams was not involved in the Mr. Dotson. Miss Bennett, that was Mother's Day, May 12, 2013. She reports allegedly an armed robbery. The detective who testified here and investigated stated he never took out arrest warrants from Mr. Williams. And he wrote in his police report, Miss Bennett is not truthful. That is the case that the state is talking about. The state then, there was Brady evidence that they don't turn over, and we find out about it in court after they arrest Miss Bennett because they say she's not cooperating, and it comes out that she told the prosecution over and over again that this did not happen the way that she reported it, and she doesn't remember. As to Donovan Thomas, and Mr. Williams has nothing but empathy, sympathy, and sorrow. They were friends. It is a lie. What the prosecution has put before this jury is a lie. What happened here is the prosecution comes up with a theory because they need a motive, they think. I know you don't need a motive in reality to prove a murder case or any other case, but they wanted a motive. So they made it where Mr. Williams and a gentleman named Rich Homie Kwan, his name is Mr. Lamar, he's a performer, and Mr. Williams and Mr. Lamar were close. There are public documents, recordings, Mr. Lamar being interviewed almost every year, and then he talks about his time with this band or group called Rich Gang, and he says every year up to this past year, he God forbid died, we can't call him as a witness, how close he is to Mr. Williams. The state, though, made it in this case, or tried to make it, that Mr. Williams and Rich Homie Kwan are enemies because Rich Homie Kwan will not sign with a record label that has nothing to do with Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams doesn't sign to that record label. That record label is owned by a gentleman named Brian Williams, also goes by Birdman, wildly successful. He started Drake's career. He started Mr. Dwayne Carter, performer known as Lil Wayne's career. He started Nicki Minaj's career, just fabulous powerful person, well respected in the industry. But the state,
Wait, why is still giving us the? I love it. I love it.
wants it to be that Donovan Thomas interceded and would not let Rich Homie Kwan sign to Mr. Brian Birdman Williams. And that is the reason that Jeffrey Williams had a feud and killed Donovan Thomas. Your Honor, what the evidence would really show if we kept going to trial, and I could tell you that Mr. Adams and I never thought we'd be in front of this honorable court. We always thought it would go all the way through trial. Was the state is saying that Rich Homie Kwan and Jeffrey Williams don't speak since the fall, and they have a bad relationship the fall of 2014. We would have shown, and we served on the state, December 15, 2014, Jeffrey Williams in a private plane with Mr. Lamar or Rich Homie Kwan, and they are high-fiving and laughing with each other. That is on audio video. There's a man who the state hasn't called yet, Mr. Martinez Arnold, also known as Duke. It's on the state's witness list. He's represented by the Honorable Ashley Merchant. He's on that plane as well. He would have identified the item, and he would have testified that Mr. Williams and Mr. Lamar were very close in December 2014. Then on December 29th of 2014, Mr. Williams, Mr. Rich Homie Kwan, Mr. Arnold, others were at Brian Williams' home in Miami, Florida. There was a posting by Mr. Lamar, Rich Homie Kwan, and a picture of Mr. Arnold and Mr. Lamar, and they said, Mr. Lamar says, "This is my number one man, Duke," or something to that effect. We would have put that into evidence. In addition to that, Your Honor, on December 8th, 2 days before Mr. Thomas, God forbid, was killed, Mr. Williams is with Mr. Thomas, as well as Mr. Sledge and Brian Williams in Brian Williams' tour bus outside of a fabulous entertainer, artist, Mr. Clifford Harris, T.I.'s studio. And at that time, they were very close. But you also have the detective with the gang unit, Detective Underwood. I asked her within the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks, did you do any, and she was on the gang unit the entire time, including today. And I asked her, do you have any evidence about Mr. Williams and Mr. Thomas being close friends? And she said, yes. Of course, I knew that. I said, how about in January of 2015, close to time of Mr. Thomas's death? She said, yes, they were close friends. Mr. Michael Sprinkle, he's a deputy district attorney in the Fulton County DA's office. He has a recording with Mr. Treadwell. You've heard the name O.G. Bentley. And in that, they're going through the evidence. And Mr. Treadwell, it's important because he has a child, too, actually, with Mr. Thomas's sister. So he's family. And Mr. Sprinkle states this is 2018. This is after the rental car. This is after all of the interviews of Mr. Copeland. This is after the interviews of Mr. Zachary. Mr. Sprinkle's in some of those interviews with Mr. Zachary. Mr. Sprinkle on tape, on recording, states, I do not know why anybody thinks Jeffrey Williams is involved in this killing. He and Donovan Thomas were close friends. It makes no sense to anyone. And Mr. Williams was never arrested, never charged, even in this, as the court just noted, with anything to do with Donovan Thomas's, God forbid, killing. In addition to that, Donovan Thomas has a place that he used to stay with a group of people on Auburn Avenue. Jeffrey Williams performed and did a music shoot there to try to help other people who are suffering in poverty to get out and to be able to be seen and to broadcast their music. Jeffrey Williams does that for everybody because he comes, Your Honor, from the struggle of total poverty, seeing people killed. He saw his brother die right in front of him, and the law enforcement, I'm not blaming anybody, everybody's on edge, but law enforcement would not get any help for him because there are all these people around. It is just what Mr. Williams has gone through is wrong for everyone. It's not just Mr. Williams, it's that whole community, but he's trying to get people out of poverty and out of that community. I have been with Mr. Williams where we have gone to speak with children together. And he tells them, don't be a rapper. Be like Brian, be a lawyer, keep in school. He tells his children, get your education. His family, his whole being, Your Honor, is trying to break the chains of poverty for others, and it has been spun in this courtroom with false statements and allegations against Mr. Williams at every turn. In addition to that, Your Honor, the state talks about the fact that Mr. Williams takes people to Miami. You would have heard evidence if we went forward. I put all these people on my witness list. Not one person on my witness list has been interviewed by law enforcement or the prosecution. They have investigated this case for 15 years. They haven't interviewed all these people. That Sprinter van that you heard about, that was already booked days before. Going to Miami, Florida, Mr. Williams and Mr. Brian Birdman Williams, they did a video shoot for a music video. If anybody would have gone further with the expert for the state, they would have seen that Mr. Williams' cell phone does not contact any of the co-defendants that are named here in Miami, and Mr. Williams stays at a separate location than any of those persons. He would always take people who can't afford it on airplanes, on buses, on tours, to his concerts. He let everyone go because, Your Honor, they never left that area. He wanted to show people you have an opportunity. The world is big. Mr. Williams gave jobs to everybody who'd want to work. He'd give them jobs and security, and I'm not insulting them. They really weren't their jobs, but they were being mentored, but they were given titles and tried to give them respect and opportunity. But if they did not wish to work, Mr. Williams would not allow them to work with them. This has all been turned on its head by the state. The fact that the state has put in Mr. Williams' lyrics are offensive. Mr. Williams has tens of thousands of recordings. On our witness list, we are bringing in all of his people, his recording artists, his engineers, his managers, his record label, and an expert, the Honorable Dr. Eric Nielsen, to talk about how Mr. Williams creates his music. His music is then changed around and merged. Mr. Williams, some of the lyrics you just heard are not even uttered by Mr. Williams. The state has no idea when these lyrics were made. Some of them were made before the shooting of Donovan Thomas that the state is saying this applies to the Donovan Thomas killing with the Tahoe. They are so far afield of where we need to be when we are trying to, God forbid, take somebody's liberty, Your Honor. The state is talking about things like F the judge and I rep my life for real. That's not even said by Mr. Williams, but they don't care to find out. They are on a tunnel vision to try to convict a man who should not be convicted. The statement about I never killed nobody, but I got something to do with that body. If the state just bothered to talk with anybody, that is a Nicki Minaj song with Jeffrey Williams. It is written by Nicki Minaj. That is on the text messages I gave, not the text message, the Instagram or Twitter rather, that I gave to the state. That is out well before this, but the state doesn't care. This is out in 2015 or 16 or 17 or 18, I can't remember, I think 18, where Mr. Williams is asked who wrote anybody, and his response is anybody who's written by Nicki Minaj, and it was. But it was really written and sung, it's a takeoff of a song by Tupac. There's a song that it parallels, which is an inspiration. But here we are with the state. Also, I never killed nobody, but I got something to do with the body. The next line comes up is, it's a truancy body. The state can't explain that, so they just conveniently leave it out. Your Honor, there were wiretaps on this case. Mr. Williams, it was going to come out, there was an application to wiretap his phone. The state never presented to a judge. That speaks volumes. the leader of the YSL criminal street gang, who's been involved from 2012 until his arrest, and even according to the state, while we sit here, they never even tried to wiretap his phone. It might have been because they don't really know what his phone number is. So all these communications you're being told about with Mr. Huey, I'm not so sure the state could have gotten anybody to say that's Mr. Williams' phone. This is how the trial has gone for us. But we sit here for almost 2 years since we did our jury selection initiation on January 4th, 2023. Mr. Williams has been sitting in a jail since May 9th, 2022. This is 2.5 years waiting for the conclusion of the state's case and a verdict from the jury, and that's why he is tendering this plea. I'm telling the court this, and the court knows when you came out the first time, it's very hard for Mr. Williams. I am not supportive of what we're doing right now. I'm not against it. But I told Mr. Williams, you okay with me saying this? Yes. I told Mr. Williams that I think we're winning the trial and we should go to verdict. But he told me I can't wait another 3 months if there is any possibility I could go home because I have children that are hurting. I have things to do, and he has some medical issues that he would like to tend to. He eats out of a bag, Your Honor. He eats processed food only. He gained 75 pounds during trial. He's lost it since. But it is hard. You know, for me, it's only 3 more months. It's enjoyable, actually. I enjoy coming. It's not that enjoyable for Mr. Williams. He told me he wakes up. Can I say this? Yes. He wakes up every day, and it's another day in HE blank blank. Your Honor, the state is talking about, in this case, they put in social media. This honorable court was not here, but the state put in that Mr. Williams, in the indictment, Mr. Williams put out a call for murder. He put $24 million murder for hire on a person's head. That is a lot of money, and that is awful. If they would have read the chat, the Instagram chat, Mr. Williams, right above it, there's a picture of a very well-known, very accomplished musical artist who actually had surgically implanted in his forehead a pink diamond worth $24 million that day. That's what Mr. Williams would talk about. That's the type of evidence that is coming from the state of Georgia in this case. It is wrong. This is all wrong. And I know we're pleading guilty, and I know we're pleading nolo, and I know we're asking this honorable court for a certain sentence, and we'll get to it with the court's permission. But this is the type of evidence that there is. But it is holding this man hostage. And that's not really what we're supposed to do, district attorney time in the state of Georgia or anywhere. The state then, because I opened on that, then they never bothered to put in all of the chats. Why did it take me to read the chats? In addition to that, going back to Donovan Thomas, talk about Mr. Williams involved, the state did a geofence. A geofence tracks his devices. It doesn't have to be a phone. It could be an iPad. It could be any type of electronic device that targets and is used. You don't have to be on the phone. It's the contact. If he has an app open, it'll capture it. And the state targeted the McDonald's, where they keep saying that Mr. Williams met with people there. They targeted the barbershop where, God forbid, the killing occurred. And they targeted a third location, no, 2 locations. And it comes out, Ms. Williams' devices are not there. It's exculpatory. I don't get that information. I got that because I interviewed Lieutenant Crabtree, and the results can't be found, according to prosecution. I did a motion for that. They just can't find it. That is great evidence for Mr. Williams. It would have also shown clearly that when he does go down from his house after getting this call that I'll talk about from Demise McMullen, he's not with these other people. And the expert for the state, the FBI agent who does the telephone analysis, Mr. Williams' phone does not ping off the same tower as a Demise McMullen or a Mr. Copeland or a Mr. Garlington or whomever. the state of Georgia has misrepresented for 2 years in front of this jury. They have hidden evidence. They have violated Brady. They have falsely accused Mr. Williams. Your Honor, saying that Mr. Williams gets that call 7 minutes after, the state said 6, it was 7 minutes after the killing of Donovan Thomas from Demise McMullen. Mr. Williams was already out of his home. Mr. Demise McMullen's calling Mr. Williams. He's not even there. He's going down to meet with Mr. Kelvin Treadwell, also known as O.G. Bentley. O.G. Bentley was supposed to go to Miami, Florida. They were talking about this deal. And Mr. Williams, that day, he was given another contract. Mr. Williams, by this time, he went from zero money. He is a multimillionaire at the time. He doesn't need the Cleveland Avenue drug deals for $15. He doesn't need the shootings. He wasn't even living in Atlanta since 2018, 19, 20, 21. He came back the very end of 21, 6 months, and he got arrested in May of 2022. In his house, Your Honor, we have everyone on the witness list. There are 12 people living at that house. Mr. Williams opens up any of a car that he has. He'll rent cars for people. Any home he has, he will allow people to live in hotels because people that he knows, unfortunately, are homeless. And he gives them all places to stay, cars to drive around. He is not involved in criminal activity. Mr. Williams just got back in our country. His passport shows it. Right before he was arrested on May 9th of 2022, there were other people in that house with the drugs and the guns. There are people whose the guns are in their names. They were going to come in court and claim the guns. Everybody else was doing as well, but Mr. Williams has entered a guilty plea. I'm not going back on that, but I just want you to know that this case is just wrong to do to somebody with no bond and to hold him hostage. He wants to, you may not do it. He's aware of that. He's aware of that. But the state offered him 15 years on probation, but they keep piling on these conditions. He just said, he made up his mind. He said, I'm just going to go with it. I got to get home. Judge may not let me home, but I'm not doing these conditions and admit that I'm the leader and I'm involved in the killing and my music just promoted everybody to do it. He's not going to do that. So he did not do that. And that's how we wound up here. The state, the night of the killing, people came to Mr. Williams' home. The state tells the court, he said, lay low. What they don't tell you is right after that, he gave money to Mr. Sledge, who said, they're going to kill me. They think I did it. And Mr. Williams said, if you had anything to do with it, I don't want to be with you. And Mr. Sledge said, I just need a hotel room with my children and my bride or my significant other to get to. And Mr. Williams said, be safe, lay low. That's the lay low. In addition to that, Mr. Williams told Mr. Copeland's with the police. Hours after the killing of Mr. Donovan Thomas, Mr. Copeland goes to the police department. Mr. Williams is the person who told him to go. Mr. Copeland said, what do I do? They're shooting at my house, at my family's house, at my significant other's mother's house. And Mr. Williams said, if you had anything to do with the murder, get out of here. Mr. Copeland denied it. And Mr. Williams said, then go tell the police. Mr. Copeland said, you want me to go to the police? And Mr. Williams said, if you had nothing to do with it, they think you did it. Go to the police. In addition to that, Mr. Copeland said, well, I'm going to retaliate. Mr. Williams told him, don't do that. Let 12 handle. That's on recordings. That is on recordings on January 11th of 2015 with Detective Thorpe. Your Honor, as far as Dwayne Carter, a performer known as Lil Wayne, Mr. Williams had no conflict with him. They are friends. We were presenting evidence that right before this shooting of the tour bus is April 26th of 2015. Mr. Williams is performing in New Orleans area. Then that's the area where it's Holly Grove, where Mr. Carter, or Lil Wayne, a performer known as Lil Wayne, comes from. And in order to drum up popularity and interest, people get on the internet and they start what's called rap battles, arguments, feuds. That's what happened here, and you would have heard testimony from Mr. Williams' management that they said, start a rap battle. It'll be better for your career. Mr. Dwayne Carter is aware of that. Mr. Dwayne Carter's interviewed. The state's aware of this. He has interviews after this. Are you mad? What's the real deal with Jeffrey Williams? He states, no, he's great with me. He brought popularity to me. He loves me. He idolizes me, and I love working with him. They did an album together. In 2014, they're in the studio together, making music together. It is all made up that Mr. Williams is involved. Mr. Williams gives a statement. The state refuses to put it in and then stop me, the previous judge, from cross-examining the detective. His name is Racy. He met with Mr. Williams in the DeKalb County Jail on the 15th day of July 2015. Mr. Williams is arrested that day. And there's a long interview. And Mr. Williams waives his right to counsel. He tells them, I'm his lawyer. They say, you don't want to speak to us? You don't have to. He said, well, I'll speak with you. And they asked Mr. Williams these questions. What about Lil Wayne's shooting? He said, it was outrageous. I love him. That's my idol. I love Lil Wayne. How about this battle? He says it's promotion. They asked him about his rap lyrics. It's the only person that the state ever did anything about rap lyrics with. And they asked Mr. Williams, what about the rap lyrics? And he tells them, it's hyperbole. He didn't use that word. He used the word, it's made up. It's rhyming. It's made up. Not like the state is saying that I rap lyrics for real. That's not even Mr. Williams' utterance. Your Honor, the point I'm trying to make to you is what the state of Georgia has presented to this jury in this courtroom the past year has been full of untruths, and they know it. The state says that Mr. Williams had a conflict because he named an album with Dwayne Carter, and Dwayne Carter didn't like that. Dwayne Carter's interviewed. He said, that was one of the nicest things anyone could have done to me. It shows how much he really appreciates me. It shows respect and honor, and I appreciate what he did. The state knows this. With regards to Jimmy Winfrey, what the state did is they put in a recording. It's not Mr. Williams. It's a jail recording, Mr. Winfrey and an unknown person. And an unknown person says, when you get out, you're going to get a Porsche and $250,000. Mr. Williams not privy to that. The state looked at all of Mr. Williams' bank records, everything. They undressed him financially. There's zero evidence Mr. Williams did anything for Mr. Winfrey. The state tells you that Mr. Winfrey asked for money for a lawyer. The conversation was, and it's recorded, it was with Mr. Williams' manager. And Jimmy Winfrey said, I need to show that I was gainfully employed for the court. Can you get me something from YSL? And the manager said, yeah, if we have it, and if it's true, yes, you can have it. That is it. There's no evidence that Mr. Williams paid for anybody's lawyer, Mr. Winfrey or otherwise. In addition to that, Your Honor, the social media postings with Mr. Rashawn Bennett, also known as YFN Lucy. So Mr. Williams, the state tells Mr. Bennett on social media, I would have killed you if I didn't like the way you take care of your mother and children. That is the post. What they don't tell you is Mr. Bennett, who is also, to his credit, trying to drum up his career. Mr. Bennett is picking on Mr. Williams, who's a much higher profile artist than Mr. Bennett at that time. And Mr. Bennett is saying that he slept with Mr. Williams' fiance while Mr. Williams and she are a significant couple, that Mr. Williams' music is awful, Nobody should listen to his music ever. Mr. Williams responds by saying, we can do an album together if you want. Stop this. The man continues of how he's sleeping with Mr. Williams' significant other. And then Mr. Williams responds by saying, I would have killed you except for what you do. That is the context that they don't tell you about. And Mr. Williams did nothing to Mr. Bennett. In fact, the evidence would have shown, if we had time or we would have gone forward, that Mr. Bennett and Mr. Williams are on the red carpet receiving awards in California, sitting right next to each other and taking photographs. This is not the Jeffrey Williams. Jeffrey Williams is a known person who is all over the place. If he did something, somebody wanted him, they can find him. This is not he is not hanging out on Cleveland Avenue. What the state is saying are not true. The situation with Mr. Bennett. So he's in the Fulton County Jail and he's housed, and there are crazy, sick, violent people, and they're on the phone, and Mr. Myrick, M-Y-R-I-C, is calling other people, supposed co-conspirators. How much will Jeffrey Williams give? He doesn't say that, but that's the theme of it, as well as Christian Eppinger. What the state doesn't tell you is that when Mr. Sumlin is asked, hey, find out how much Thug will pay me to kill Mr. YFN Lucci, Mr. Sumlin says, I don't know his number. I can't get in touch with him. He doesn't talk to me. And that's because, Your Honor, since 2015, and he means no insult, but Jeffrey Williams has had zero contact with Shannon Stillwell until this case, Kenneth Copeland, Demikian Garlington, Justin Cobb, Demise McMullen, Mr. Sledge, Mr. Murphy, all these people. This is a lie. This is a 100% lie, and that's why we tendered a no-low plea to being a leader of a criminal street gang. Mr. Williams is not a leader. In fact, if it would go forward, on Mr. Huey's phone, there are conversations with Mr. Copeland. And they both say how Jeffrey Williams is a zero, an F him. And they don't talk to him, and Jeffrey Williams never does anything for them. Mr. Huey, Mr. Williams met later. He met him closer in the time of 2020. Mr. Huey's father went through a horrible episode that Mr. Williams knew, and that's how Mr. Williams knew his son, who's Mr. Huey. And Mr. Huey's on hard times, and Mr. Huey's making mistakes. And Mr. Huey, supposedly, Mr. Williams believes, armed robbed a man named Chandler Durham, D-U-R-H-A-M. Mr. Durham is Mr. Williams. He's a fabulous record engineer. And Mr. Williams states, give him back, tell him to give back the property or he's going to die. The state puts that as an overt act. No one dies. The property doesn't get returned. Mr. Huey ignores Mr. Williams. The state told you today that Jeffrey Williams sent Mr. Huey a posting that Mr. YFN Lucci is going to be performing on January 19, 2020. That's not true. Mr. Huey sent that to whoever phone that was. And all it says is slat and slatty. Well, I went out to the places that Mr. Bennett was supposed to perform. There's no shooting. There was no fight. There was nothing to report. There's nothing here. In addition, the state says same thing on September 12th, September 2nd, 2022 on Mr. Huey's phone. I'm not conceding that was Jeffrey Williams even having a conversation with him, but even if it was, it doesn't show anything. It says slatty, lay low. Lay low means don't do anything. Get out of the way. That is what it is. That is Mr. Williams' role. Mr. Williams, there is evidence in the record, and there would have been more. He takes people on tour with him. He takes people in the mall with him. But when they do crime or do things to people, for instance, there was a prostitute, and several people gave that prostitute money, $500. And the prostitute at the end of the $500, getting $500 from several people, had sex with a person and then she was armed robbed. So all the money came back. Mr. Williams wasn't involved in that, but he heard about it. He made those people find the prostitute and repaid her every dime. People stole from stores that Mr. Williams found about. He went to the stores and he repaid all that. He didn't steal anything. He doesn't need to steal anything. Your Honor, Mr. Williams stands with Elton John. Elton John called Mr. Williams the next coming of John Lennon. Mr. Williams is unbelievable talent. He's not just a rap artist. In fact, when he's interviewed in 2017, he gives a statement and he says, I had to learn rap. He grew up in a house learning other forms of music. He likes all music, but rap hit in his community, and his community raised him. They supported him. They came out to him. They made him get into establishments. And once the establishment saw all the people come out, he got more establishments. And then he went out of that little area in Atlanta to other parts of Georgia, and then to all the neighboring states and throughout our country. And he has performed on every continent but one. He has performed in front of, being the headliner, 300,000 people at one time. He has a real life and career. He is not the leader, and he is not worried about buying jewelry that is stolen. Mr. Williams is actually innocent. I'm not trying to corrupt our plea. That's his plea, and he's entitled to it, and he wants it, and he embraces it. But to me, this is a wrongful prosecution. This is outrageous.
All right, so you're pleading guilty, or your client is pleading guilty to counts 57 through 62.
It's all true.
Do you
Yes,
concede
there's a factual
there's a
basis.
factual basis
I
for those
concede.
counts?
Yes, I concede that.
Okay. All right, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's fine. And Your Honor, I'll answer any of your questions, but the point I'm trying to make is 45 years to serve 25 years in prison, when just this morning, it was a probationary offer. It was a probationary offer. The state knows, but they want to control. They have this theory of music, and they want to stop Mr. Williams from making music, from entertaining, just stop his life. That's just not right. And it's wrong of the district attorney in Fulton County to do that. If they offer probation, then he's not a 45 to serve 25 years in custody type of person, and he's certainly not the person that the state has stated in front of the court. What we're asking, Your Honor, on count one, which is the RICO count, to accept the nolo contendere plea. Please sentence Mr. Williams to 20 years to serve 5 years in prison commuted to time served. Mr. Williams has served, as I said, 22 and a half years. On count 56, Your Honor, that's the leadership of a gang, nolo plea, 20 years to serve 5 years commuted to time served, consecutive to all other counts. On count 57, which is a gang count, Your Honor, not a leader, guilty plea, 20 years to serve 5 years commuted to time served, concurrent with count one. With regard to count 58, which is possession of, I believe it is marijuana with intent to distribute, 10-year sentence on probation, concurrent with count one. On count 59, which is violation Georgia Controlled Substance Act, possession of codeine with intent to distribute, 5 years on probation, concurrent with count one. On count 59, Your Honor, which is violation Georgia Controlled Substance Act, possession of cocaine, 3 years on probation, concurrent with count one. Count 61, 5 years of probation. It's a firearm count, consecutive to the other counts, consecutive to before count 56. And then count 62, 10 years to serve commuted to time served. That should be a total sentence, Your Honor, that we are respectfully requesting the court to consider. I believe it's 45 years to serve 5 years in prison, commuted to time served, 40 years on probation, credit for the time already served and community time served. As I said, after 3 years of probation, the probation becomes non-reporting, and after successful completion of 10 years on probation, the balance of the sentence be terminated. Mr. Williams asked the court for house arrest for 3 years as part of the sentence, but house arrest specifically defined that Mr. Williams will be in his home or at any lawful employment, touring, studio, performance, business meetings, and the like. Wear an ankle monitor for the first year and pay the costs of same, and the company must be approved by probation department, and the ankle monitor to be affixed within 10 days of hopeful release from custody. Mr. Williams cannot possess a firearm, but he can be around licensed security who are armed or other persons who are lawfully carrying a firearm with a license. And that would be knowingly for Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams can transfer probation outside the state of Georgia. He has residences in the state of California. He has studios in the state of California. Mr. Williams be allowed to travel throughout our country and the world for lawful work-related industries. Mr. Williams wants to perform. He's going to do this anyway, Your Honor, but we made it part of the sentence. At least one concert each year at a venue, if they'll have him over holding 10,000 people, if that is workable for the venue and Mr. Williams' management, and he is going to donate all of the profits that he makes to a 501c3 charity. Mr. Williams wants to pledge $100,000 for the next 3 years to the Fulton County Sheriff's Office if they will hold an illegal firearm buyback to buy back firearms that are not supposed to be on our streets. Mr. Williams does not wish to go near the Cleveland Avenue area, not to insult that area at all, but it is just not a good idea under this circumstance. And he can drive on the highway, but otherwise not come within 1 mile of the area that we call Cleveland Avenue, and we can give the exact dimensions of that area. Mr. Williams must perform 100 hours of community service per year for the next 3 years as designated by probation department. Mr. Williams can associate, and this was agreed to previously, with people who are convicted felon or alleged gang members solely for lawful purpose of making music.
All right, I see Ms. Love shaking her head, and I think it's fair to establish that until the entirety of the negotiations were agreed to, it was all up in the air.
Sure.
That may have been something y'all had already hammered out, but it wasn't, it's not anything they're bound to.
Absolutely.
Fair, okay.
I agree with that. Mr. Williams can have no contact with any of the supposed victims, and there was an Exhibit A attached to the state's proposed plea agreement, negotiated plea agreement that was sent to you, so we adopt that Exhibit A, but we can give it to the court if you need those names. And Mr. Williams have no contact with any of the co-defendants in this indictment, with the exception of Mr. Quantavious Greer, that is his biological brother, as well as Mr. Sergio Kitchens. He's a phenomenal artist. He goes performer known as Gunna, G-U-N-N-A. Mr. Williams and Mr. Kitchens are contractually obligated, and they frequently perform music together. Your Honor, any other conditions that this honorable court deems appropriate? I want to thank the court for all your time. Always, I want to thank Ms. Percival for everything she has done. I want to thank Mr. Williams for allowing me to stand with him. I really never thought we would be here, but this is his decision, I want to thank the Honorable Keith Adams, who may want to speak, Your Honor, but I can never imagine a better lawyer than Keith Adams.
Mr. Adams, do you want to add anything to the record?
Your Honor, I don't know that there's really much to add. Mr. Steele has represented to the court, I think fully and thoroughly, the breadth of our knowledge of the case. Mr. Williams's background, I think the court has not just heard it from Mr. Steele, but has had the opportunity to sit here and hear some of the evidence and kind of get a feel. You've had a chance also to observe Mr. Williams and then get a feel for him, his background, and so forth. You know, the only thing I can say about Mr. Williams that hasn't been said is that he comes from an area. You might have heard throughout the course of the trial that there was an album, a concert tour. We came from nothing. And that is true. Mr. Williams came from, you know, I hate to use the word abject poverty, but that really is the case. Came from an area where there was a significant amount of crime, where, as you've heard, he's had tragedy in his life and has observed tragedy in his life. And he has gone through a good bit. He has been involved in a lot, but he has raised himself up. He has done the best he could and has done phenomenally well, and is, I think, an inspiration to a lot of people from that community who look to him and see the success that he has gained and have been fully supportive of him. But he finds himself here. He's in front of you. He is tendering this plea because he accepts responsibility. You have heard everything Mr. Steele has had to say. I can only ask that you follow what we have put before you. You also have, I believe, the paperwork that was given to you by the state, which kind of gives you some idea of what they were looking for as well in terms of conditions on Mr. Williams if we were to ever reach some sort of agreement. And we ask that if you feel that there is anything within the state's proposal that might be appropriate in terms of the sentence for Mr. Williams, that the court please feel free to do that. There is nothing that he puts himself before the court. And I think 2.5 years sitting, going through this process, challenging the process, but now standing before you and asking that you consider everything and sentence him appropriately in the way that we've requested. I'd simply ask you, I'd join Mr. Steele and Mr. Williams in asking you to do the same. And I thank you as well, as Mr. Steele did, for your patience with us and for bringing some order to the proceedings that candidly was needed. So that's all I have to say. I thank you again, and I ask you to consider everything that's been put before you.
All right, Mr. Williams, is there anything that you want to say?
Yes, ma'am. I take full responsibility for, you know, my crimes or my charges. I want to say sorry to my family, my mom. My mom got 11 kids. I can't say all their names, you know. My managers, my kids that's not here. Really everybody that got something to do with this situation, I want to say sorry for just, like, you know, having so much time investing into this, you know. And I am a smart guy. I am a good guy, and I really got a good heart, you know. I find myself in a lot of stuff because I was just nice or cool, you know, and I understand that you can't be that way when you reach a certain height, because it could end bad, and it don't really have to have nothing to do with you, but it could end bad, and it could, you know, fall on you. And I know the choice is yours, it's up to you, and I hope that you allow me to go home today and just trust in me to just do the right thing and never see you again unless it's at a, you know, bar in the future or something. Just out of this type of situation, I promise you I won't ever be in this type of situation again. I'm going away. I've learned from my mistakes. You know, I come from nothing and I've made something, and I didn't take full advantage of it. I'm sorry. Through these last 2.5 years of my life, you are really, truly, honestly, the best thing that has happened to me, because you made everything fair for me and everybody involved on both sides, you know. I'm sorry to the sheriff, you know, everybody for just having to put extra time in. I know y'all got paid more money, but I'm sorry for y'all having to put this extra time in to be away from y'all family, you know, and I just hope that you find it in your heart to allow me to go home and be with my family and just do better as a person. I know what I bring to the table. I know what I am. I know the heights I've reached. I know the impact I got on people, period, in the community, you know, all people. I learned that late, like these past 2 or 3 years of my life, I kind of learned that late. And maybe it was because I was, you know, probably on drugs or anything, I don't know. But I have came to my senses and I understand what I mean to this world. But I am a good guy, you know, I don't mind doing stuff like, you know, like free shows, and I always did that. You know, I did free shows and gave it to single parents, millions of dollars. You know, I made $1.8 million on a free show, and I gave it all to single parent charity. And I did like 2 or 3 shows that made like $700,000 a piece, and I gave it to the breast cancer organization. Like, you know, I do things like I put millions of dollars back into my community for real. I really did. I did more than anybody ever did from my side, you know. But I understand, you know, rap lyrics. I understand how it could be twisted. I understand what it could do to the mind of people. I understand all that, and I promise you, I'm 100% changing that. You know, it's just I'm older, I'm grown now, you know, and it's just like I'm smarter. It's more things to rap about. Like I've experienced a lot of good things. I experienced more bad things, but I experienced a lot of good things too. And anyway, I can go forever.
Well, I appreciate it. And I appreciate that you do realize how much of an impact you have on people. I mean, it's past your neighborhood. It's worldwide, especially young people. And having come up from where you came up from and living in and around that, you know that gangs are damaging to our community. And it may be that a whole lot of rap music and the rap industry is, I mean, honestly, it sounds like a modern day version of kind of WWE wrestling that used to be on television, where people would just get up and posture and act like they hated each other. And it may be that that's a lot of what is going on in the music industry with rap. But whether it is fake or not, it has tremendous impact on kids and young people who think, this is cool, this is what I want to do. Look at him, he's a millionaire. I can do that by being, you know, a gangster in the streets. And that's not true. What you're likely to have happen to you if you're a gangster in the streets is you get shot, you get killed, or you get thrown in prison. And those are, you know, by far the most likely outcomes. And, you know, you've been in here watching the trial, and you've seen the pictures of Mr. Ryan posing with a gun as big as he is at 15 years old and going out and shooting and killing another teenager. And that's what gangs do. And that's unfortunately a lot of what rap music does. And if you are a modern day John Lennon, you know, I mean, he might have rapped too in this day and age. I don't know. But I know you're talented. And even if you choose to continue to rap, you need to try to use your influence to let kids know that that is not the way to go, and that there are ways out of poverty besides hooking up with the powerful guy at the end of the street selling drugs. And I know that happens for protection sometimes, but a much better way would be getting an education and setting, hanging around with people who set a good example. And you be one of those people that sets a good example. I mean, all right, so that's my high horse on that. I could also go on. But I want you to try to be more of the solution and less of the problem. All right. All right. So it is not lost on the court that the state, had they been able to come to agreement on certain special conditions, was willing to entirely dismiss the RICO count, was willing to entirely dismiss one of the gang counts, and was willing to entirely dismiss this, machine gun count. Was willing to give a sentence that permitted Mr. Williams to walk out of the door today, and therefore does not seem to be particularly worried that Mr. Williams, if on the streets, would be a danger to society. I'm taking that into consideration and crafting my sentence. And in permitting a NOLO plea to the RICO count and one of the two gang counts, I would not be permitting the NOLO to the one if you were not pleading guilty to at least one of them. But you are, and y'all admit a factual basis for the counts that you are pleading guilty to. I find there to be a factual basis for those counts, and for the remaining counts with which you are charged, I am going to impose a sentence, and I've taken a little bit of the suggested special conditions from the defense and a little bit of the special conditions suggested by the prosecution. On count one, the court sentence is 20 years to serve 5 years, commuted to time served, the balance of 15 years to be probated, and a $25,000 fine. On count two, the sentence is 5 years to serve, commuted to time served. That's the minimum sentence that's permitted on that count. It is required to be run consecutively. I'm going to run it consecutive to count one, but I am going to backload. Oh, I'm sorry, that is not commuted. That is 5 years to serve, and it's going to be run consecutively to count one, backloaded, by which I mean after you serve your 15 years of probation, if you have been successful on that probation, and I sincerely hope that you are, then at the end of that 15 years, I will commute the entire rest of any service portion of your sentence to time served. So I'll get to the end of it and give you the total sentence, but I'm also going to impose a $15,000 fine with regard to that count. Count 57, 20 years to serve 5, commuted to time served, the balance of 15 years probated, concurrent with count 1. Count 58, 10 years to serve 5, commuted to time served, balance probated, concurrent with count 1. 59, 5 years to serve, commuted to time served, concurrent with count 1. 60, 5 years to serve, commuted to time served, concurrent with count 1. Count 61, 5 years to serve, that is required to be also a consecutive sentence, so that's going to be run consecutively to count 56 and backloaded. Count 62, 10 years to serve, also required to be served consecutively, that's going to be consecutive to count 61, also backloaded. So essentially, the total sentence is 40 years to serve the first 5 years in prison, but commuted to the time that you have already served, followed by 15 years on probation. followed then by the backloaded 20 years, which can be served in custody and will be served in custody if you are not successful on your probation. If you are successful in completing your 15 years probation, that will be commuted to time served. You are to remain on reporting status for the first half of your probation, active reporting for the first 7.5 years of your probation, and that is pursuant to OCGA 17-10-1, subsection 2, A2A. And Mr. Steele and Mr. Adams, in order to keep him on reporting status, there needs to be good cause shown. We all concede that good cause is shown here?
Stipulate.
All right, I appreciate that. Special conditions of your probation.
What good cause? What do it mean?
Can I have a second, Your Honor?
Sure.
Let the judge. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right.
Going home.
You had enough time to talk with your attorneys?
Yes.
Okay. All right, special conditions of your probation. After 48 hours from your release, you are to stay away from the metro Atlanta area, and that's defined by the U.S. Census Bureau. It may change, but you can look that up anytime to figure out what that is. For the first 10 years of your probation, subject to the following exceptions, you are permitted to be in the metro Atlanta area to attend any wedding, funeral, or graduation from high school, college, or graduate school of any of your immediate family members. And immediate family members is defined the same way that you all were contemplating it when you were negotiating. You can get here up to 24 hours prior to any such event, and you need to leave within 48 hours after any such event. In addition, during each year of your probation, I'm going to require that you come to the metro Atlanta area and make a live anti-gang and anti-gun violence presentation 4 times a year, each year of your probation, at a grade school, a middle school, a boys or girls club, anything like that, that type of group. And if you want to, that presentation can include a benefit concert, and these presentations may count towards your required community service hours, which I'm going to impose, that during each year of your probation, you perform 100 hours of community service. You are, and this is required by the fact that there's a gang conviction. You shall not knowingly have contact of any kind or character with any other member or associate of any criminal street gang. Exception to that, if your brother is a member of any street gang, I hope you talk him into getting out of it. Quantavious Greer, and then also Sergio Kitchens, as long as you are contractually obligated to him. That is going to include anybody who is named in this indictment, except as absolutely necessary to conduct the lawful business of your musical career, and to any extent that the state is not agreeing to the exception for Mr. Kitchens. In the event that that part is not enforceable because it is only a portion of a special condition, going to provide that that be severable from the rest of this, and I'll put some case sites in the Senate sheet for that. You are in no way to promote any criminal street gang or any criminal street gang activity, including on any social media platform. You are not to utilize any hand signs, terminology, or language that promotes any criminal street gang. You are not to participate in any criminal street gang activity. You are not to knowingly engage in any contact with any of the victims that are listed in this indictment or with any of their family members. And you may not have in your possession or with arm's reach any kind of a firearm because you're going to be a convicted felon and that is, except I know that you have security and you need security. You can be within arm's reach of a firearm that is in the possession of either licensed law enforcement or licensed security personnel that are in your security detail or anybody that you're performing with. You are to submit to random drug screens and not use any drugs unless they are prescribed for you by a licensed physician. You are to execute a Fourth Amendment waiver that will permit the search of your person, residence, vehicles, and electronics for any firearms, any criminal street gang paraphernalia, or any illicit drugs. And as I mentioned with regard to one of the first of your co-defendants from this trial, at least since I've been involved, to plead guilty, our Uniform Superior Court rules instruct and provide that it is absolutely proper for a judge to grant leniency in sentencing when, quote, the interests of the public in the effective administration of criminal justice are served, unquote. And I think that this plea is in the interest of the public and in the interest of effective administration of justice. Have been trying to ensure that to the extent I can, this trial also abides by that. It's been challenging at certain times. I find your plea to be freely, knowingly, intelligently, and voluntarily entered with an understanding of the consequences, and I accept it as such. I also need to inform you that your attorneys were going to represent you through either the last day of this term of court or 30 days from now, whichever is later, and any of the filings that were mentioned that need to be filed within that time, they would file on your behalf unless they are permitted to withdraw from representing you before that time. I am not going to impose the conditions suggested by your counsel about the benefit concerts and the donations to the sheriff's office, but I certainly strongly encourage you to do those things and to do and continue to do things that benefit your community and especially help young people to stay out of criminal trouble. And unless there is anything from counsel other than that.
I have one matter, Your Honor.
Okay, and does the state as well?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Your Honor, with regards to Mr. Williams being permitted to come to the Metro Atlanta area
Yes.
or Cleveland Avenue area for funeral or the other items,
Right.
can you also consider, God forbid, there's a serious medical condition of a person that
In
is,
his immediate family,
yeah.
certainly, we can add that. And I also meant to mention, because I know you do travel all over in order to pursue your career, that it's permissible for your probation to be transferred to out of state, and that has to be done through probation, but that is fine with the court. And you may also keep your, nobody's mentioned it, but keep your passport and travel out of state and internationally to the extent that you need to do that for business purposes as well. All right, Mr. Body.
Yes, just very briefly. Thank you. The district attorney just wanted me to urge the court, due to the fact that the Thomases have been negatively affected incredibly traumatically by what has been discussed by both parties here today, to make a brief statement as she believes that they fall within the exception or within the bounds of Marcy's law. If the court would allow, I understand the court made a ruling earlier as it relates to that, but she wanted to.
All right, thank you. And I appreciate, well, I cannot even begin to understand what they must, anybody must be going through when they lose a family member to violence or criminal violence. Mr. Williams himself has expressed his own sorrow to the family. I, again, am going to stand by my belief that the appropriate time to hear a victim impact statement from them is at the close of the trial that contains the murder count with regard to their family member.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Okay, court is adjourned. Good luck to you. And I'm going to have there better be no violations, but if there are any, you're coming back to see me.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Hey, you're.
Y'all, he is going home today. He is going home today.
But since the offers for Mr. Kendrick and Mr. Stillwell are expiring today, we will offer the record.
Let's take a recess and I'll be back.
She said since the pleas to Diamante and Shannon are expiring today, we want to put that on the record. Judge just said, let's take a recess. So maybe they'll be back. It sounds like they will, because if that's going to go on the record, we'll be able to see it. But what just happened is that Thug is going home. He was sentenced to 40 years, commuted basically to time served. She basically said, time served. You will have 15 years of probation, and then there's a 5 years backloaded. Okay, there's a 5 years to serve in jail that's backloaded. So as long as he completes his probation with no violation.
Hey there, Young Thug trial watchers. This is a law and crime.
As long as he completes his probation with no violations, she says she will do away with that 5 years. He never has to come back again as long as he does right. She just let that man go home. Yes, it sounds like she did accept the house arrest. So the first 3 years, that was a recommendation from his team, which is that he would have house arrest for the first 3 years and an ankle monitor. But if you notice, she obviously recognizes his career, his job. And so all of the traveling that he does to perform is allowed. She allowed him to still perform and do what he needs to do to make money. He just cannot be hanging around Cleveland Avenue. He cannot be hanging around the metro Atlanta area. He has to go about his business. He can be in Georgia. He cannot be around what the census says is the metro Atlanta area. Other than that, he is going home, you guys. 154 days. I have been covering this dang on. That's just from day one of testimony. Brian Steele said, I don't even think we should be doing this because he said, I enjoy coming to court. Why would that man say, I enjoy this? I told him, I don't think you should take this plea. Brian Steele was ready to do his case. He said, you gonna quit already? I still got stuff to say. He gets to go home. I know I had some super chats in here, so I want to get to them. How do y'all feel? Okay, I did emojis earlier. I'm loud. I have energy. If you're new to this channel, I have energy, okay? So if you're like, ooh, girl, shut up, sorry. Tell me what your energy is now, because we did the emoji earlier for the stress we feel. How do you feel now? What's your emoji? Look, Ashley super chat was just mail. Eric Brown said, I told y'all he coming home tonight. The first song he drops is gonna be crazy. Valerie Quaker, thank you for the super chat. Thank you for the 5. Jeffrey better be a Buddhist monk for the next 15 years. Put yourself in a bubble, have police security, and call your lawyer before leaving the house. And then we got another 10 here. Thank you so much. Okay. Oh, look, y'all. Okay, now don't become no co-conspirators unindicted. We got snakes and green hearts. Wow. Veronica Pittman with the 5. Thank you so much. You got. I am. Here's what is important, I think, to recognize and realize as well, right? Defense attorneys. The same way the state is supposed to make things look bad, or make things look one way, defense attorneys are here to make things look a different way. That is their jobs, right? They make things look the way they need them to make. There are some defense attorneys who are just really, really good at it. And I will say, I don't know why they would ever put, and I don't like to disparage any of the state or love or anything like that. However, there is a difference in their presentation when I'm talking about Love and Steele. And so having Love present all of that evidence the way that she speaks and all of that, but there are just people who are just a little more able to tell a story more succinctly. And so having that and then having Steele right after tell his version of events is just very, very different. So that was a choice. That was a choice. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I said I don't like to disparage the state, and Blue gonna say I do like to disparage the states. Wow. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you. Thank you for even watching. I had no idea this was going to turn into this. I just assumed it would just be another trial I covered, but here we are 154 days later. And as of now, Diamante Kendrick and Shannon Stillwell are continuing on with trial. They do not have pleas. This was just Jeffrey Williams. We still have 2 more co-defendants for this trial. That is continuing. Wow. I don't even know. I appreciate it. I appreciate it so much. Somebody said they still want the McDonald's video. Brian still is done. Now he got case in front of Supreme Court next week. Wow. Wait, so where did it go? Nadia said, I'm done watching this trial. Are you over it? Are you exhausted? Oh, Mel, we did it. Brianna, Irvin, thank you. Ebony says, you have been great at covering this case. He's going home today. I'm speechless, but I had a feeling Paige was going to be fair. Gamba Gang says, I want to call in pretty please. I'll be short. What you got to say? You want to join the live, you saying? Jesse says, Jeff is free. Now we going to see Jeff free. Oh, Jeffrey, not free Jeff. I thought you were making a play on like Jeffrey, free Jeff. I think that's what you was doing. I didn't mistake that. Wow. Okay, he's going home. Jeffrey's going home today. I would love to interview. Oh, you guys, hold on. Let me send a text to see if we're really done. Because anytime we see this, it makes me think that we're done. But I think I just heard her say we're not. So hold a second. Let's find out. Let's find out. What time is it on the East Coast? It's 6:30. Hold on. Let's see if we're really done. Give me a second. Let's find out. I got some more. Y'all are on it. Kaya says, I feel like I just got free. Girl. Not having, but watching this trial, it started to take a toll, you know? I feel a lot of emotions because of how long, like the investment of the trial, you know? And also because, I don't know. This is crazy. Mel done. Overcoming the Flesh Ministry. Thank you for the $1.99. Thank you again. We did it, Joe. We did it, Joe. Irvin, again, thank you. With the super sticker, be encouraged for the 5. Thank you. Mo Mac. I just like your name. Mo Mac, makeup artist. Thank you. Can you run back the poll results? Oh, can I do that? I need to see. Penny, also for the Neil. Can I go back and look at the poll? Is that a thing? You guys have to tell me if that's something I'm able to do. Reactions, timestamps, participants. Tell me if I'm able to go back and see the poll results to see how many of you guys were right. Oh, this is the other thing. Somebody was asking, property forfeiture is not uncommon, especially in a case like this, because the idea typically is if you've been doing illegal activity and that illegal activity has allowed has allowed you to purchase, buy things, it's not uncommon for the state to then say that those should be forfeited over because they were obtained through illegal activity. You know what I'm saying? Like, you were participating in this, you made money, and as a result of that illegal money, you were able to get property things. So that is not, somebody was asking that earlier. That's not uncommon in cases like this for the government to say that, or the state, whatever, to say that. Kalina, thank you for the 5. Y'all profile pictures, y'all be cute, and I'll be over here. You saw that my day one YSL, I looked great. Okay, I got confirmation. It says it's coming back, okay? So we got to hang out because it's coming back. So I think we're going to hear a little bit, some kind of bit about Diamante and Shannon, just because it seemed like she said that those offers were expiring today, so they wanted to put it on the record. So that's what we're hearing. That is going to come back. Hopefully it's the same link. We'll keep watching. Let me see. I was missing some stuff. Wait, Kira said, I'm getting my concert outfit ready. I am so happy I was right in the poll. State was doing too much. Thanks, Paige. Is it problematic? I mean, Brian's...
$7,
Wait,
which was participation in criminal street gang activity, which carried a sentence of 5 to 20 years. He was also charged with count 58, which is violation of the Georgia Controlled Substance Act. That is for the possession
Right, marijuana.
of marijuana, which carries a sentence of 1 to 10 years. As to count 59, I believe that's the possession of codeine with the intent to distribute, which is 1 to 5, which is 5 to 30 years. And count 59, which is the possession of cocaine, which is
60 is possession of cocaine.
So 59 was the codeine, 60
Right.
is the possession of cocaine, which was 1 to 5 years. Possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, which was count 61, which is 5 years to serve consecutive to any count indictment. Possession of a machine gun, which was count 62, which was 10 years to serve consecutive. And then he was charged with count 63, which is possession of a firearm by a convicted felon pursuant to 1611-133. I know my math isn't the best, but that's life plus some years. The state's recommendation, Your Honor, was for Mr. Kendrick to plead to count 1, conspiracy to violate the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, which was 20 to serve 15. Count 2, the murder reduced to voluntary manslaughter, 20 years to serve 15. 20 years to serve 15. And then to the gang count 57, also 20 years to serve 15, all to run concurrent, and the state was willing to null pros all the other counts in the indictment.
All right. And Mr. Kendrick and the attorneys associated with you, I want to make sure that y'all know that unlike what happened with Mr. Williams, if you plead non-negotiated to less than all of the charges, there is nothing that the court can do if the state chooses to go forward with some of those charges. So you could not do what Mr. Williams pled guilty or nolo to each of the charges that he was facing. You cannot say, well, I'd like to plead guilty to count 1 and I'd like to plead to the reduced charge on count 2, and then I'd like to just skip the rest of them, because the state can say, well, we're not skipping the rest of them, we're still going to try you for the rest of them. And the state can also say, we're not okay with letting you plead to voluntary manslaughter unless you abide by the terms of the agreement. We're going to go forward with the murder trial. So I know that Mr. Weinstein, you and Mr. Apt and everybody else who's been helping know that, but because things seem to have worked out sort of beneficially for some of these other people who have already pled. Y'all might think, oh, well, gosh, can't we do something better than that? Given what you're facing, they hold a lot of the cards, and a lot of it is outside of the ability of this court to change. Okay? All right.
We understand that, Your Honor. Thank you for advising
All
us of
right.
that.
All right, Mr. Stillwell is facing,
Your Honor, Mr. Stillwell is also looking at count 1, which the conspiracy to violate the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, which is 5 to 20 years. He is facing 2 counts of murder for count 2 and count 49, which each carries a sentence of life imprisonment. He's also charged with count 50 of this indictment, Your Honor, which is participation in criminal street gang activity, which carries a sentence of 5 to 20 years. He's also charged with count 51, participation in criminal street gang activity, also a sentence of 5 to 20 years. Count 52, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon previously convicted under 1611-133, which is 15 years consecutive to any count in the indictment. 54, possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, which is 5 years to serve consecutive. Count 64, which is another possession of a firearm by a convicted felon under 1611-133, which is also 15 years to serve consecutive. So Mr. Stillwell's looking at maximum of 2 life sentences plus
85 years.
Plus 85 years, Your Honor. The state's recommendation, and I'll just say globally, Your Honor, was 60 years to serve 40 years in prison. That we would have reduced both of the murders to voluntary manslaughter, Your Honor. And we had given his attorney the option to kind of craft how that 40 years would look. But that was the extent to our negotiations, Your Honor.
And Mr. Stillwell, kind of the same information to you. If the state does not want to reduce charges, you're not entitled to plead to reduce charges. They can say, you got to face these murder charges and we're going to make it a jury trial if you don't agree to what we're offering. Same thing, you can't say, well, I'd like those other charges dismissed if they're not willing to dismiss them in exchange for the negotiated sentence. So obviously each of you has the right to continue with the trial. You know, what you're doing, you are all have very capable attorneys representing you who clearly care very passionately about you all personally, as well as presenting your best case. But it's ultimately going to be up to the jury, and you cannot know what any jury is going to do. And they may say, I don't believe a single bit of this beyond a reasonable doubt. Y'all are both walking. They may say, you know what, I buy this, I don't buy that. I'm convicting you of 4 of the 5 or 4 of the 8 charges. You're still then going to face sentencing. They may convict you of everything. And if you are convicted of everything, Mr. Stillwell, you're facing 2 life sentences plus 85 years on top of that, as opposed to 40 years to serve with parole as a possibility. And Mr. Kendrick, you are facing life plus, I think I added up 115 years instead of 20 to serve 15. So it's just something to think about. And I mean, it's already past 5 o'clock. So are y'all going to leave the offer open until you have withdrawn the offer before you even put it on the record to?
We communicated this to them last night, but they did not accept it.
All right, well, given that the state spent the entire day negotiating Mr. Williams' plea, ultimately unsuccessfully, I don't know if either Mr. Weinstein or Mr. Sharp would have been able to negotiate with you during today, They would have, no one, we didn't have any communication from Mr. Weinstein or Mr. And they rejected the offer. Okay.
I did have communication with Mr. Abate today.
Oh.
I attempted to have
All right.
communications with the DA last Tuesday
Well,
morning, but she failed to show up for our meeting.
Any chance y'all might leave it open until 9 o'clock tomorrow?
Your Honor, I'll consult with the DA and if she wishes to read.
Okay. I mean, I have no idea whether they'd want to keep it, but I haven't, we haven't put it on the record and I haven't ensured myself as the court that they understood what the potential sentences were up until just now. So I would appreciate it if she would, so that they have the opportunity, having heard from the court, to talk to their attorneys. And they may still say that we're good, we're going forward, but.
We'll consult with the district attorney, but as a.
Okay. So in the event that it is no longer open to you or that you decide to reject it anyway, I plan to start the trial again Monday morning. I'm going to have the jury be here at 9. I'm going to have us be here at 8:30. We're back to getting no sleep. So I'll see y'all at 8:30 regardless. Okay, now court is adjourned.
So their pleas expired at 5 p.m. Let me mute again. And so what Paige Whitaker was just saying is, can you basically extend it, because she wanted to make sure that they understood what it sounds like she was getting at is you can't say, if they were to do the kind of plea non-negotiated, the kind of plea that Thug did, it sounds like she was saying because the state is knocking down those murder charges to manslaughter charges, you can't say nolo to count 1, count 2, and I'm going to plead guilty to the manslaughter charge that they have knocked it down to. You can't do that. If you're going to plead guilty, you can't. If you're not going to agree to the terms, you're left with the charges that you've been charged with. That's what I believe she was getting at. Like, you can't try to plead guilty to the lesser charge if it's not like a negotiated plea, and you can't say nolo to these, nolo to this, and then like guilty to the lesser. That's what it sounded like that she was getting at. And she just wanted to make sure that they understood that. And so that's why she was asking for the extended time. She sounds like she wants to give them another day because she wants this to end. So she wants them to be able to consider it. But even Weinstein, he threw a little shade in there, but it sounds like he is saying even, we're good and we want to keep going. So not my Rashida, your phone dying. Y'all, I am going to get off in a minute. People are harassing me because I haven't made the recap, but I don't even know how you recap this day. Like, what a day. What a day. But to that point, like, I think she said Shannon Stillwell is facing 2 life sentences plus 80 years if he takes it to trial and the jurors convict him. That's the maximum he could be sentenced to. For Diamante Kendricks, he's facing 1 life sentence plus 115 years. So they are both facing life sentences plus, right? And so I think, and I had some super chats. It sounds like she just wanted to make sure everybody is clear before we break. She's trying to make sure everything is clear. But obviously, Love said, the DA said it expires. So we're done here. Let me read a few more of these. Wow. I'm sending my first ever super chat to you. Thank you for going live today without all the noise. I appreciate it to you. I appreciate you being here and for sending a super chat. I'm still, getting used to YouTube lives too, but thank you for letting me be your first one. Yes. What will we do with our day now? That's going to be the question for sure. Katrina, Mel, you are making us better citizens of the world. Thank y'all for tapping in and caring about this with me, because obviously a lot of people are covering it, but thank y'all for sharing, watching me for sure. Blue says Mel going to the court ended the trial. She should have sent you to Karen Reed. I should have gone to Karen Reed. Listen, I will forever remember that the last regular day of court for this trial, I was present for. I will forever remember that. I am a part of history. I'm taking it. Literally, thank you, Mel. So many cases. Karen Reed, Young Thug, and the guy defending himself. Nixon, he's coming back soon. Quentin Nixon, he's coming back soon. Hannah says someone called Greg. If you are new here, Greg is my husband. And that's a little joke we have. No, thank y'all for watching. This is crazy. I'm happy we got to watch it together. This felt like intense, and we sat up here and really, we've been on here for 3.5 hours. We sat on here and really watched this together. This feels like a major moment. This is like history, like a major, like, I feel like I can't even imagine how many people tuned into this today. People are going to be like, you remember when Thug took that plea? Who did you watch with? Y'all watch with I'm Not a Lawyer, but definitely going to be covering the sheriff and the judge case for sure. This one is not over. So, you know, we'll see what happens over the weekend. We'll see what happens. Because it is Halloween, I would now I need to enter. I would love to interview any and everybody from this trial, like serious, especially the jury. But I would love to interview any and everybody from this trial. Absolutely. Longest trial in Georgia history. We literally sat up on here and did this. I'm so curious how the state pivots, what this case looks like with all of these defendants gone. I cannot wait to see how they pivot, what they do. I'm so curious. I am so curious. It seems like they should be able to condemn. There's no way that this case we shouldn't be done by like February, if that. Like they should be able to make this happen. Oh my gosh, I would love to interview Keith Adams. You listen, if anybody knows Keith Adams and he's open to talking to me, I would love. This is absolutely going to be a movie. Like, yeah, there was a bunch of people in here. That was wild. It's Halloween. I have to get my kids ready for their Halloween costumes. Not gassing, I'm talking about I'm just tuning in. I have to apparently make my recap is going to be trash. It's just the sentence and then his words. I'm not going through all of that because Love and Steele talked for way too long and I'm not doing it. So that's the recap. All right, y'all. I have to go get and Kokomo. Kokomo, if you happen to come across this interview, I want to holler at me. Let's talk. I got to go get my kids ready for Halloween. Trick-or-treating has to happen and dinner and all of this stuff. Thank y'all. Please subscribe. Please join. If you're not on the Patreon, we have a good time. We're going to do more of this because this was a good time. Okay, I'm leaving. Do the pause, please. What's the pause, please? I don't know what that is. Oh, and I got everything, right? Let me make sure I'm not leaving nothing. Child, this was a lot. I love the child first, but I'm glad I sat through it with you. Thank you for being here, Latifa. First of all, the profile picture is giving. It's giving. Michael Billups says, did she say that DA Fonnie Willis has to give the okay to extend their offer until tomorrow? Yes, that's what she said. She said, as of now, the DA has said that it is expired at the expiration date. And Love was like, no, she was serious. Yes, that's what you heard. Galactus again, we had over 4K in the live. Good luck with the recap. This was a lot. Thank you, girl. Thank you. It's going to be a lot. And it's Halloween. All right. Have a good night. Be safe. Don't do nothing that's going to make me have to make a I'm Not a Lawyer But video on you, okay? Make good choices. All right? Goodbye.